What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? What's going on, gang? Busy Friday around here. Not sure if you're subscribed to the channel. You might have just seen the show notification just went up. Football show tonight, finally. We landed on, no matter what we want to do, we always land on these marathons. We're going with another marathon show. It's going to be tonight, 8 p.m. It's on the schedule already, so no backing out of it, no changes of plans, no last-minute turnovers, no cancellations like last night when I was saying I was going to go live at 8 o'clock maybe and do a quarterback show. This time, for real, we're up and running. Everything's up on the site. I got to run a projections update at some point. I'm about halfway through the groups and optimizers as far as the game notes goes. I've got all the optimizer groups set. I do that part first, then I double back, add all the game notes. I'm trying to consolidate that effort with my show notes effort. I redid the dashboard for the NFL shows a little bit so that I updated that like first main page, and I won't have to be hopping around tabs. I'm not sure how it's going to look on the screen, which is going to be a little problematic, but hopefully it'll be a little bit more efficient, get us up and out of some of those games a little bit quicker, because, you know, in theory, it should be easier to talk about quicker game by game than baseball. There's just fewer data points. There's fewer players. So we're going to dive into that. It's going to be a late night. I hope you guys don't have Friday plans. Come on by 8 o'clock, presumably until around midnight, maybe even a little longer. We went almost 5 hours on a shorter slate last week, but hopefully we'll punch that up a little bit. I think that one suffered a little bit from some clunkiness, just getting my feet back on the ground as far as football goes, so hopefully we'll be a little bit tighter this for week 2 here, but a lot to talk about, lot to uncover for that slate. But first, 11 games up for baseball. A little warm-up here. Get the old pipes going. Got a handful of people hanging out. I'm sure we'll get some more coming in. Cujo's here. Thank God it's Friday. Yes, Friday. Today is like my marathon day in addition to the marathon show, this baseball slate. It's just going to be pretty much all night tonight, getting everything in line for the weekend, because tomorrow I'm going to be mostly out of pocket. I'll be back, I think, late night on Saturday night into Sunday. So then I'll be up through Sunday morning, get everything updated going into the slate. No problems or anything there. But tomorrow during the day, Saturday during the day and into the evening is usually like crunch time as far as getting a lot of articles, doing a lot of updates, rerunning rankings and shit. So it's gonna be a busy Friday, and then should be a fun Saturday for me. Hopefully you guys have good weekend plans out there. Anybody doing anything cool? Anthony Taylor's here. Andy's here. Harold Haas is here. TGIF, going to be a great day and weekend for DFS. I like it. Anthony Taylor saying, for NFL, do you think Tua should think about retiring? I absolutely do. Yep, time to punch out. It's unfortunate, but I mean, he demonstrably is in danger out there at this point. If he, hopefully he bounces back well from this one that already happened. I mean, you don't know for sure that he will. So, yeah, I'm strongly on board with the punch out. And then Tom Brady can unretire, leave the broadcast booth, go take that quarterback job, and then Greg Olsen can get his position back with Kevin Burkhardt. See? It all works out. So an interesting baseball slate to talk our way through. Going to try and make decent time. You know how these things go. We have a handful of lineups in that we can update. Only one weather spot, the Dodgers and Atlanta game. Roth has it yellow-orange. He's saying it's going to be a problem all weekend. Scattered showers and storms around today. Looks like just keep an eye on it heading into lock kind of a situation in Atlanta. The other one on there was Miami and Washington. That one's not on this board. But a handful of lineups came in. I'll grab those as we go. So starting us off, Clark Schmidt on the hill for the Yankees facing the Red Sox. 3.85 implied total for Boston against Schmidt. He's okay, but that's a surprisingly low total for that Boston lineup in Yankee Stadium against a middle-of-the-road kind of a starter. I think Boston should be a full half run higher at least. So I'm kind of surprised by that mark. Kind of like the upside for the Red Sox bats. On the Yankee side, 4.75 implied total against Tanner Houck. He's just pretty good typically at limiting home run upside, keeping the ball on the ground, keeping run totals pretty much in check. He had a couple of bumpy spots in the road, but 7 run totals. He gave up 7 earned 2 times this season and 6 earned 2 times this season. Most of his other starts are 2 or 3 earned runs at most. So he has been pretty much good, but obviously running into a buzzsaw of a lineup in Yankee Stadium. I think their lineup's out, so we'll see which version of it we get. Probably Verdugo in it. Cards and the Blue Jays, an 8-run total there, 3-8-1 on the Cardinals side. They're coming in to face Kevin Gausman, who gave up 3 earned, went 6 innings in his last one, struck out 5, walked 3. Still not exactly finding consistent form, but a lot of games where he's not exactly melting down either. We're going to have to talk about him when we get there. That is a relatively low total for a pretty gettable Cards lineup. 4.28 total on the other side for Toronto. They're going up against Eric Fede, another kind of similar pitcher. Doesn't typically get destroyed, but there are a few earned runs available, 4 or 5 earned runs available. So depending on the day, we might be able to look at him. Don't love the Blue Jays lineup, but don't love Eric Fede in that situation. And it's kind of the same thing with the Cards and Gausman. So not exactly sure how much we draw from that game. Probably would favor slightly, I think favor Gausman as like the top option out of that, just top of my head, but we'll see what it looks like when we get to it. The Rays and the Guardians, a low total at just 7.5 runs there. It's Tanner Bybee on the mound for the Guardians. He looks pretty high end against a heavy strikeout Rays squad. 3.29 implied total for Tampa Bay. Looks very, very targetable. And then a 4.31 implied total for the Guardians against Zach Littell. Seems like a good spot for bats. Littell's not terrible, but it's not at all a good spot to roster him because of the low strikeout, pretty high-quality Guardians lineup against, drawing a decent total. They're showing, I think, 3 guys in the lineup above the magic number for power upside, so just doesn't look like a good day for Zach Littell, and maybe we get to some Guardians bats. 2 pretty decent totals in that game that's threatened by rain in Atlanta. 4 mid-4s for both teams, 4.34 for the visiting Dodgers and 4.24 for the hometown Braves. It's Spencer Schwellenbach on the mound for the Braves. He's been pretty good overall. Gave up a couple of earned runs in each of his last 2 outings, but basically pitching well, finding a lot of strikeout upside. Last 2 games a bit diminished for K's, but was on a run of 8 or 9 strikeouts in 3 straight. Had a 11 and a 10 strikeout game already in his ledger. So there's a lot of upside there, just a terrible opponent and a low strikeout opponent at that. So I don't think we're going to Schwelly. The Dodgers drawing a little bit of power upside against him. So are the Braves against Landon Knack on the other side of that one. Between the two, I think Knack is the more targetable pitcher. But between the two, the Dodgers lineup is definitely the better lineup than the Braves lineup. There is upside in Atlanta. But Knack can also be decent. Last time out, he struck out 8 Guardians, gave up just 2 earned runs on 6 innings on 3 hits. So that's a very good start against a low strikeout team. There is upside for strikeouts in that Braves lineup, so there's an argument to be made that Knack could get through as a sneaky option. It's just a deep slate. Garrett Crochet likely to give us 2 or 3 innings for the White Sox, and we're very proud of him. Not finishing out the season exactly strong, been getting short-started basically since around the beginning of July. So not really an option here, but is still pitching. Facing the A's, he'll rack up a couple Ks along the way, but the A's are drawing pretty decent numbers up toward the top of the board, despite just a 4.02 implied total. I think they have an opportunity to get to Crochet in this more limited form, and I definitely know they have an opportunity to get into that White Sox bullpen. So kind of like the upside for the A's, and if Vegas isn't really pushing it, maybe it's not hitting the radar for a lot of people. Hoping that one gets through is kind of a sneaky cheap stack. 3.56 implied total for the White Sox. I have no interest, and Brady Basso is looking like an absolute bargain on the DraftKings slate. I believe he's in there at 4,000. Cincinnati Reds, Minnesota Twins, pretty high-end game for offense on the Twins side. One of the top teams. I believe they ranked out in the top spot projections-wise out of the non-Coors teams. Cubbies out-edged them because they're at a 6.01 implied total at Coors Field. But among the non-Coors teams, that's the highest run total. They also have a monster home run upside. They're facing Julian Aguilar, who does not have an L in his name. My fingers just want to put an L in the name Aguilar when I type it, but he doesn't. He's given up a 3 home run game in his 5 starts already. Homer allowed in each of his first 2 appearances. Then the 2 most recent outings were both pretty short, 2 2/3, 4 2/3. Wasn't terrible in the most recent one. Struck out 2, walked 2, 2 hits, no runs. and gave up no home runs in either of those two, but there is still a big power upside or downside in his case, showing and spiking for the Twins. Made Matt Wallner the home run pick of the day. Trevor Larnach looks really good. Byron Buxton's in the projected lineup. He, I believe, was over double digits. So was Royce Lewis. A lot of ways to stack that Twins team, and they're still pretty cheap. So we're liking that spot quite a bit. Coors Field is Coors Field. You're not going to pitching there. It's Austin Gomber and Javier Assad. Don't really care about those guys. If you are going to one of them, it's most definitely Assad against the Rockies. If memory serves, he had a good one against Colorado already this year. He did, but that was a home start. That was at Wrigley at the beginning of the season. All right, so scratch that. Not that it matters anyway. Not that we're going, one individual game log hunting. But if it had been at Coors Field, I would have been at least interested to see what the numbers look like. But that was at Wrigley. It doesn't really matter. Assad relatively limited. There's just a little strikeout upside, but there's also a lot of danger in Coors Field. And that Rockies lineup is not terrible. They're drawing a 5.11 total. Between the two things, I greatly prefer the Rockies lineup to Javier Assad shares, and the Cubs seem pretty obvious with a big total. Highest on the board. Sammy Aldieri and Yusei Kikuchi dueling in the next one. Pretty solid looking total for the Astros going up against Aldieri. He was not bad in his first two outings, though. 6 innings in the second start. That was at Texas. Just gave up 1 earned run on 3 hits, struck out 7. A reasonable 5-inning start in his debut. A little bit of faith in the potential, but the Astros are just really good, and they've got a lot of home run hitters. They've got a lot of upside. They've got a lot of low strikeout guys, so it's not a really good spot for Aldieri. Yusei Kikuchi, on the other hand, has been dynamite for the Astros since joining the team, pitching deep into ball games, giving them a lot of quality. Had a 12 strikeout game against the low strikeout Royals of all teams 2 starts ago, so looking pretty tremendous. Did hit a bump in the road, kind of reverted back to old Kikuchi form, gave up 2 home runs, 4 earned runs on 7 hits to the Diamondbacks. But they are pretty good against lefties. They are the highest scoring team in terms of run creation in baseball. So we can kind of forgive that a little bit. And it wasn't a total disaster. He still struck out 6. Didn't get the quality start, but made it through 6 innings and got the win. So there is always going to be upside. He's on a bit of a roll when it comes to just successful outings for DFS purposes. So I think he can absolutely get there against a gettable Angel squad, 3.56 implied total. The Brewers with Freddie Peralta on the hill. He's going to be going up against old friend Eduardo Rodriguez. Erod, only 4 innings in each of the last 2 starts. 3 earned runs in one, 4 earned runs in another. Just 1 strikeout in each game. A pair of walks in one, 3 walks in another. 7 hits apiece. Kind of problematic outings there. He also gave up 5 earned over 5 1/3 in his last start in August. He had been decent in the first 3. Faced Cleveland 5 2/3, 3 runs, just 1 strikeout. It's kind of okay. Faced Colorado, struck out 5, 3 earned on 6 hits. 5 1/3 against Miami, 1 earned, 5 strikeouts. It's probably a little bit more that 2 of those teams were Colorado and Miami, and that just benefited him a little bit. He is a talented guy, but probably not a great option on a pretty deep pitching slate going up against a decent Brewers lineup. And then Peralta, you can definitely get there. But again, the Diamondbacks have been very high scoring and pretty good this season. 4.43 implied total against Freddie Peralta kind of says it all. And he hasn't exactly been peak form, Freddie. He hasn't been meltdown, a frequent meltdown either. Low point of the season was a 6-run game. But he has given up a handful of earned runs, 4 earned runs a handful of times, 3 earned runs. It's on the higher side of what we're used to seeing from Freddie. That said, still a very high strikeout and high-quality pitcher on the right day. Rangers and the Mariners toward the end of the night. It is the return of Jake DeGrom. He's made 4 rehab starts. Went 4 innings in the most recent one. I just gave him 3 innings, and he's still pulling a mid-board projection because it's Jake DeGrom. I really don't know what to expect. I don't think we're getting any kind of actual depth or pitch count here. I don't think he looks all that playable. 337 implied total for Seattle says it all, though. We know how targetable and how high strikeout they've been. Emerson Hancock on the hill for the Mariners, pushing a 371 implied total toward the struggling Texas lineup. I don't know. I kind of prefer Texas. Hancock hasn't been bad, but he's pretty gettable. Kind of just an average at best starter. And then a good one in the last game up. It's Dylan Cease and Logan Webb. So Webb going for the Giants. Cease on the hill for the Pods. 361 implied total for San Diego and a 3.47 at home for the Giants. Looks like a pretty good spot to mine pitching. Probably not going to any late night hammers as far as bats go in that one. Here's your unsorted pitching board. Imagine if it was Austin Gomber at the top at those prices in Coors Field. If I turned on a show and that was how it was ranked and it was correctly sorted, I would immediately turn off that show. I do not encourage you to turn off this show. All we needed to do was correctly sort. Steven Leibowitz is here. What's up, Steven? Good to see you, pal. Coming back at 8 o'clock tonight for the 8 o'clock prime time knockout marathon Friday football show. We'll be going from 8 till sunrise, somewhere around there. Watch it at your leisure over the weekend, of course. That's why I definitely wanted to make sure we got it done so that people would have it. And if you're not here, you're not here. But hopefully at least a few of you guys will be in and out to hang with me a little bit. It's always easier when there's people to talk to rather than just thinking I'm in here talking to myself. Mamba's here. South Dylan Cease, top of the board against a very, very gettable high strikeout Giants lineup. Love that spot. 92-94 makes a ton of sense to me. Kikuchi, 10-5, a little bit expensive against the Angels, but definitely worth it. And again, has been pitching really well. 9,200, not a bad price at all on DraftKings. Easy to get to over there. Tanner Bybee, with the strikeout upside that the Rays are going to provide him, that's a really low price. 8,500, 8,300 might be a go-to click on FanDuel. 83 puts him on the board. You can mix him in with the higher price pitchers. You can use him as a cheap SP1 and mix him in with some of the lower cost options. Bybee looks pretty solid in that spot. Bailey Ober, not a pitcher that I trust all that much, but has had his runs of very good starts in a row throughout the season. Hit some bumps along the way. That's typical Bailey Ober. As soon as you start to trust him, he'll have a total clunker. He projects out fairly well against a Reds team that does have strikeouts in it. 98-86. He's just okay on his side of that game. I really like the bats and support. I guess maybe you could consider it that way. The depth has been there in the last two. And it was a strong run before that. I mean, if we're just looking to buy decent innings, outside of a few big blow-ups, and that's what happens again with this pitcher basically every year, you get some of the most reliable depth out of Bailey Ober, if nothing else. If you just pull up his game log and look at the number of 6, 7, 8, or 7+ inning starts, including a complete game, and several double-digit strikeout totals, and a very solid handful of 8 and 9 strikeout totals. Solid, mid-range strikeout pitcher. So easily on the board at 86 on DK. It's the 98 on FanDuel that I kind of struggle with compared to like Dylan Cease against the Giants for 92. There is tons of upside for the quality start though, and getting that bonus on the FanDuel slate. But also just a challenging spot against a very good Arizona team. 9,600, 9,700. I have no problems with the price. I have no problems with the pitcher, even in the matchup. I think he's very good and very high strikeout. Just kind of a question of, do you need to tackle that Arizona team on such a deep pitching slate? Schmitty against Boston, I believe in around the medians. Could find a little bit of ceiling, but probably a lower comparable ceiling to all the guys above him and maybe even a couple of the guys below him, not including Jake DeGrom, who won't pitch beyond those numbers. So Schmidt's just okay, and like I said, I kind of think the Red Sox should be about a half a run higher on the Vegas board. He is cheap, he is talented enough, but I have a healthy respect for that Red Sox lineup and all those lefties in Yankee Stadium. Logan Webb is very good against a low strikeout Padres team. It's not the best matchup, but more than enough to beat that team and find some Ks and a lot of quality. Another guy who typically gives you quite a bit of depth in his average starts. DeGrom, like I said, there's no suppressing Jake DeGrom against this Mariners team, even in like 3 innings beyond this level. This is literally like a 3-inning projection. Maybe it was 3.5 that I gave him. I don't think we're getting anything beyond that. You're not putting any kind of ceiling on it. So for 9,000, 8,500, there are probably better ways to spend your money. I don't think you're going to qualify for the win. I don't think you're going to get anywhere near the quality start bonus. If they brought him in at like, even 7s, brought him in at Landon Knack pricing, we could maybe talk about it, because Landon Knack is basically that guy at those prices. It's a similar projection. He doesn't have all that much more ceiling, even against Atlanta with their strikeouts, than DeGrom does. DeGrom could find 30 points. It's just mispriced for the opportunity. Houck against the Yankees, don't love. Playable, but don't love. 93 on FanDuel. 81, a lot more playable on DraftKings. Yet another guy that can give you depth and typically does pitch clean innings, keeps the ball in the yard pretty effectively. Gaussman, 8,000. The price is more correct on DraftKings. 95 on FanDuel feels a little bit aggressive given the season he's had. Justified by his track record historically, but not as much this year. Not a terrible matchup, not a great matchup against the Cards. Kind of right in the middle of the board where he belongs. I'll play him at 9,500 on FanDuel in 150 lineups. In one lineup, in 3 lineups, he's definitely not my first choice. Maybe he gets there a few times in 20. Brady Basso, your chalk value guy of the day. Basso went 6 against Detroit just a few days ago on the 7th. 3-hitter, struck out 6, and now he gets to face the White Sox for 6,000 on FanDuel, for 4,000 on DraftKings. I think you guys know what to do with that one. Schwelly, just challenged by the Dodgers. He's very good. 8,800, 9,000, not a bad price. Terrible matchup. Landon Knack against the Braves. More upside for quality given the strikeouts in the Braves lineup, but a lot of power against. There's some still threatening hitters for Landon Knack. It feels a little bit like another why would you spot, except for he is correctly priced, 76, 75. Does put him in the bargain bin, but when I can dip into that range and grab, let's say, Tanner Houck or even Clark Schmidt for slightly more, it kind of offsets that opportunity. But Knack is there. Littell's the same kind of thing, 82-71 against the low strikeout Guardians team. Fede against the fairly low strikeout, halfway decent Blue Jays lineup for 8,074. Those guys are all playable pieces of the slate, but they're just kind of awkward price fits. They're not true bargain bin quality, but they are capable. Crochet, I don't think you're getting any kind of innings. 3 innings is probably the cap. Erod, challenged by Milwaukee, but very cheap at 6,700. Capable of giving us 6 innings easily. So a little bit of upside at least to roll the dice and consider him a playable bargain bin piece. Assad at Colorado, I really struggle with even at 6,000 on DraftKings. Seems very limited as an opportunity. 86 on FanDuel, there's no way I touch that. Eddie, just limited by the Astros. Aguilar showing a ton of power to the Twins is a no. Hancock's kind of a no against Texas. 71 on FanDuel, maybe you could consider it, but probably not with such a deep slate. 79 just seems like a misprice on the DraftKings slate. He's higher than 2/3 of the slate. That doesn't really make sense. Austin Gomber's a hard no at Coors Field. All right, we got some lineups to grab here. Yanks is in. Red Sox does not look like it's in. All the early slate lineups look like they're in. If you're playing the early slate, and if you haven't built your lineups yet, DJ Hertz against Miami is kind of interesting. Nola against the Mets, kind of obvious. Eflin might not be a terrible lot. Oh, he's expensive, though. 10-2 for Zach Eflin against the Tigers. Anyway, we're not playing that slate. But I wanted to call out DJ Hertz because I think he's good. Good young lefty against that Marlins lineup. All right, Yanks is in. We'll just go one at a time for those as we get them. So Schmitty, 8,200, 8,700, a 26.1% strikeout rate in the show this year, 2.34 ERA with a 3.79 xFIP over 65 and a third in 12 starts. Again, he is a talented enough pitcher. He's not bad. It's just I don't know that I want to target these Red Sox with basically a full form version unless I'm missing somebody. I'm not. I think we're good, right? Durant, Devers, Abreu, O'Neill, Yoshida, Casas is in the projected. That looks like full strength to me. I really don't get why they're as limited as they are in that Vegas total against a righty. Again, Schmidt is good. He's limited home run power, but not completely by virtue of being a ground ball pitcher. It's a 15-degree average launch. He has missed some premium contact, 88.8 miles an hour of exit velo, just 36.3% hard hits, and a limited barrel rate. Some of that could be some happenstance in there, though. Stuff Plus loves the arsenal. He's got a great swinging strike rate at 12.1%, a 30.7% CSW. He was decent last year, 21.5% Ks. We've jumped 5 points of strikeout rate. We've also jumped a little bit in walk rate, but that's acceptable. The swinging strikes are up. The CSW's up year over year. You can see last year was giving up significantly more premium contact, significantly higher home run rate. I don't know that that's necessarily gone. And with all these good lefties in Yankee Stadium and these home run hitting and hard hitting lefties, really question the upside for Schmidt. Last time out in his return, 4 2/3, 4 hits, 2 strikeouts, and a walk. In 3 starts in rehab outings in AAA. He had gone, or 2 in AA, 1 in AAA. He had maxed out at 4 2/3, 17 hitters, struck out 7 in that game. We're at least approaching fully stretched out. I think I gave him like 85-ish. Somewhere in that range, maybe 90 equivalent. So 82, 87. If you want to chase a little bit of strikeout from what will probably be a pretty low-owned pitcher with a little bit of win upside on his side, though not a ton, he's on the board, but he's just kind of a mid-range guy, and I think he just gets lost. You know, where he's projected puts him in play at those prices, but I feel like that gets lost in this shuffle of $9,000 guys, and then it also gets lost in the shuffle of slightly cheaper guys down the board. Tanner Houck at 81.93, again, just feels like a why would you want to tackle the Yankees in Yankee Stadium, but we've all seen the Yankees get beat by decent pitching. Houck is a good example of a ground ball pitcher, 4.1 degree average launch, just a 1.55% home run rate that is pretty realistic on that. Stuff Plus likes the Arsenal at 108, well above average, a 3.24 ERA and a 3.57 xFIP holding up throughout the season. 169 2/3 in his 28 starts, a 21.1% strikeout rate. He's just an average strikeout pitcher, but he's a decent strike thrower, 29.2% CSW, 9.9% swinging strikes. Not bad, and good at giving you depth. Had been on a run of 5 straight 6-inning outings. One of them was not a quality start. He gave up 6 earned runs in one of them. And then ran into 4 earned runs in 5 innings over in Queens against the Mets in his most recent one. Gave up a homer, struck out 7, though. 6 strikeouts the game before that against Detroit. 3-hit shutout over 6. He's capable of high-end starts. He's more than capable of doing this to the Yankees' home run numbers. Even Aaron Judge against Tanner Houck is below the 10 mark in the home run model. Juan Soto at 7.81, Giancarlo Stanton at 6.36. So you can see the impact he has, that ground ball rate, most especially. Judge hasn't hit a home run in 70-plus plate appearances now. It's the longest stretch of Aaron Judge's career without a home run. Had a bad April and now is run into a less than extraordinary late August and September. I'm sure he'll snap back into form sooner than later. 6,800, 4,800, you're still paying a premium. You're still worth it. Even against Tanner Houck, you can roster some Yankees, but they're a little lower end than they might otherwise be if they had their full-fledged home run hitting power with them. Now, if we're talking about sequencing with this team, it becomes a whole other story. There are a couple of decent on-base options. The 2 stars, most notably 418 and 453 on-base percentages. The rookie catcher, Austin Wells, at a 340 on-base, a 119 WRC plus with a 182 ISO in the heart of the lineup. Lefty bat, not a bad option there. Stanton's a weak on-base, high strikeout guy who could get victimized a few times by Houck. Glaber in the leadoff spot, just medium on-base option. Jazz isn't bad at resetting the table down lineup. He can also drive in runs. He also hits the ball hard from the left side of the plate. He's got 22 homers and 35 steals, a 113 WRC plus. He's really interesting. Rizzo in the 7 spot is not an interesting down lineup, but he's not getting on base. Nobody in the bottom 3 gets on better than a 300 clip. Verdugo is in the lineup. No Jason Dominguez, because Aaron Boone deserves to be dragged out into the field in a metaphorical way as the Yankees manager and given the Joe Pesci at the end of Casino treatment. It is absurd that Alex Verdugo is in this lineup and Jason Dominguez is not. We called the kid up so that he could sit after saying we're not going to call him up so that he could sit when the real reason was to get the draft pick eligibility next year. Just so dumb. He's a terrible manager. In a Red Sox game that could be, the Red Sox are a few games out, but it could turn into a crucial game if things go poorly the next couple of weeks for the Yankees. Friday night in Yankee Stadium, you're not going to play the kid. You're not going to let the fans see the kid in a Red Sox game. You idiot. What a terrible, terrible manager. Fire Aaron Boone. Hit one big home run in 2003, and we're going to reward him with endless loyalty in the manager role. I don't even have a good candidate in mind. Don Mattingly. There you go. Donnie's not doing anything. He wasn't exactly a great manager, but at least he's a Yankee. Not even convinced that Aaron Boone's really a Yankee. Anyway, it's enough ranting out of me. On the Red Sox side, Jarren Duran, Rafi Devers, Willie Abreu off the top. 3 very solid lefties. All of them hit the ball extremely hard, 44th, 51.9, and 50% hard hit rates, 9.4, 12.9, and 11.8% barrel rates, 21, 28, and 15 home runs. All 3 of them well above a 200 ISO from the left side. Everybody's a great run creator, 131, 137, and 122 WRC plus marks. Red Sox lefties are tremendous. That also includes further down the lineup Masataka Yoshida, who is a very good line drive hitter at 286, 356, 423. He's created runs 18% better than average. He doesn't have the thunder that the other guys do, but he's very low strikeout, puts the ball in play like crazy, always involved in the offense. Tristan Casas is a home run hitter, 10.9% barrels and 41.6% hard hits for him over 185 plate appearances. 185 ISO in a limited sample, 8 home runs, able to take pokes at the right field porch. Definitely an interesting down lineup hitter. More interesting if he climbs into the 5 spot where he probably should be hitting in this lineup. In the middle there, he's not left-handed, but Tyler O'Neill, 16.7% barrel rate to lead the team by a fairly wide margin, 48.5% hard hits. 30 home runs, a 288 ISO, absolute monster in the middle. High strikeout, but also draws walks. Nothing wrong with rostering a lot of Tyler O'Neill in among the lefties here. Connor Wong's another good righty. 3,800 is a very nice price to find the catcher on DK. 29 on FanDuel. He's hit 13 homers, 286, 339, 438 this year. 15% better than average creating runs. Trevor Story, 34-25 at the bottom of the lineup. It's just, I continue to think that's a gem at the bottom of the Red Sox lineup that you can put into your lineup at shortstop. I wish he had multi-position. I wish I could get him at second base. I question whether the ability actually does come back, but that's a player that, given what he's done in the past and how cheap he is, what the ability looks like in that lineup, I'm more than interested in going back and finding out for those prices. So happy to get him if nobody else wants him. And then Ceddanne Rafaela, 33-31, mix and match quality, multi-position guy on both sites. 15 homers, 17 steals. Not the most consistent guy, but very productive in terms of counting stats, DFS output across multiple positions, and has been cheap and unpopular throughout the year. So easy enough to get to. If I did the Yankees too quickly, it's, yes, but mostly in tandem with those two guys. Yes, he goes into lineups with these guys and is a very strong catcher option, just kind of on his own at 4,400, 2,900. It's just the lack of home run upside for the Yankees that kind of kills that opportunity as a one-off. Stanton's a yes, despite the downside for home runs. Probably a day where Stanton looks more like a strikeout victim a few times, but there's obvious upside there. Jazz is a big yes. Rizzo, Volpe, and Verdugo are just mix and match quality at the bottom of the Yankees lineup. This goes... I mean, I can't put the Red Sox fully on top of the Yankees given that disparity in the Vegas total. So it's got to be Yankees bats on top, and I'm not totally a believer in that. Kind of limited Yankees on top, then the Red Sox, who I think their total is a half a run too low. Those should probably be evened out, honestly. I don't know exactly where we need to go with the numbers, but I mean, if this was a half run higher and that was a quarter run lower, I think that would look about right. I'm going to call it a tie. Red Sox bats, Yankees bats. It is bats on top, but Houck is playable, and so is Schmidt. So it's a four corners game. Call it a tie between the Yankees and Red Sox. And then, to me, it probably goes Schmidt-Houck just on strikeout potential. But Schmidt's in the more dangerous spot, probably. Bigger downside with Schmidt, I think. Cards on the Blue Jays, we've got both of these. So I'm not the biggest Fede fan in the world. 3.39 ERA, but a 4.23 xFIP kind of betrays any real quality there. Just an 8.7% swinging strike rate, limited CSW, 24.9%, 20.9% strikeouts. He's given you decent depth this year. Started out the season a little bit stronger than he's wrapped it up as far as the strikeouts go. He's given up more earned runs through the second half of the season, has been more gettable through the second half. So kind of a limited option. He's fine because he's only 7,400 to 8,000 across sites, but this confirmed Blue Jays lineup, an 18.5% confirmed strikeout rate for these guys. Really only Addison Barger down lineup and Joey Loperfido in limited samples are high strikeout. Everybody else is low to very low. So it's not a great target for DFS upside. You can roll the dice a few times, but I would expect kind of around a median game from Fede here. I don't think you're dealing with a ton of ceiling. You're just looking at maybe some innings pitched. Card's got to get him the win bonus, which is not guaranteed in a spot against Gausman. Gausman hasn't been good, 21.9% strikeouts, way down year over year, and especially compared to previous season before that. Last year, 31-1. Actually, 2 years ago, it was 28-3, so last year it was the bigger deal. 31-1. We're down basically 10 points of strikeout rate. That's on 2 and change, 2% swinging strike dip, and a 3 and change dip of overall CSW. Gausman's been problematic this year. 4.09 ERA, a 4.17 xFIP. The walk rate's fine. The whip is too high. Too many hits allowed. Too many opportunities. Swinging strike rate is still okay, but it's not him. 10.4% barrels, 41.5% hard hits, and 90.2 miles an hour of exit velo, most notably. It's actually kind of lucky to only be at 2.92% home runs. So there's actually additional downside visible in what he's allowing on the mound that could have pushed him beyond this kind of an ERA, beyond that kind of a home run rate. The Cards, not the best team in the world. Go find it. You can see in the home run model, Alec Burleson leads the team at just 7.13. He's hit 21 this year. Goldie also has 21. But it's not exactly a threatening Cardinals lineup. So if I really had to say, in the coin flip of life, does Kevin Gausman come up as heads or tails? Is good start, bad start today? I would tend to lean good start. But that might just mean an effective real-life day where he gave us 5 and change of 4-run ball and struck out 5. I don't know that that equals DFS winning days at 8,000 on DraftKings. 9,500, I'm pretty sure it does not equal a Slate winner on FanDuel. Last time out, 6 innings, 3 earned runs, struck out 5, walked 3 against the Braves. Very emblematic of the kind of start you could probably expect here. 5 2/3 against the Twins. He gave up 2 earned, struck out 4, walked 4, same kind of thing. That's very much this Kevin Gausman. Against the Angels, he was pretty good. He struck out 10, 1 earned run on 2 hits, went 7 innings. If you get that guy today, you're in business. There is upside. There is a little bit of ceiling, but there's also a pretty visible basement. So not entirely sold on the Gausman thing. That doesn't exactly make me want to rush out and roster Cardinals on the other side of it, though. Typically, when he's gotten nailed this season, it hasn't been for a ton of runs. 2 6-run games, 3 6-run games, a 7-run game in there. But by and large, we're talking about 4 earned runs is the downside. And they haven't been very good this season. There's a couple decent, slightly above average run creators now at the top of the lineup. But that is a 105 WRC plus collectively. So yes, it is above average, but it's not outstanding. Nobody up here in this lineup has nearly, not even a 170 ISO, let alone 200. Nobody has more than the 21 home runs those two guys hit. It's a very limited team. They're not expensive. You get away with it from that perspective. You had Thomas Segisi at the dead min, second base and shortstop eligible. That can help lower pricing. He hasn't exactly been tearing it up over 11 plate appearances, but give him a chance. Mason Wynn from the top, 37-28, playable at shortstop, but not ideal for fantasy scoring. 13 homers, 11 steals, a 320 on base, a 105 WRC plus. He's very average at the position. He's cheap, but he doesn't really give you huge days most of the time. Just a couple of hits, couple of maybe a run scored. Limited and more of a correlated scorer than an individual contributor. Burleson does have the 21 home runs, but it comes on medium strength contact, 6.9% barrels, 40.8% hard hits. There's nothing overly special about that. Just puts a lot of balls in play, low strikeout, low walk rate. Goldschmidt, strikeout issue this year, 26.9%. That's up 3.5 points over year. The walks have also come down by 5 points. That's problematic. He's still hitting the ball hard, 10.5% barrels and 49.4% hard hits. It's resulted in 21 homers, a 168 ISO. That's a very low ISO for what I would expect from Paul Goldschmidt, but we have rounded the turn and we're into the home stretch of the career here with Goldie. The output is okay, but just a 101 WRC plus. The consistency is weak. 302 on base, 246 average. We expect better from Paul Goldschmidt over the years. The price has come down commensurate with the age and the performance, though. So if you're going to Cards, you go there. It's just not he's no longer a guy that draws you to the cards. He's no longer a reason to roster Cardinals. He's just there. Same thing with Arenado, 3,800, 2,900. In fact, more dramatically with Arenado. As we've highlighted through the season, there's a problem with his swing that he needs to rectify before next season. 14.7% Ks is fine. 6.9% walks. He's putting a decent amount of balls in play, but this is how he's hitting them. 3.5% barrels is down 4 points and change from last year, and last year was pretty mediocre at 7.3. 29.9% hard hits, down nearly 10 points. It's a really problematic season. He's slashing 267, 320, 397 and disguising it a little bit below being 1% better than average for run creation. But this is not what Nolan Arenado was brought here to do and paid to do over the last few years and has done over the last few years. This is a disaster. So he's there. He's playable in the lineup, but again, not a reason to go to the lineup. Brendan Donovan, 35-29, 12 home runs, a 133 ISO. He is the team leader at a 111 WRC+. Mostly a correlated scoring option. Should probably be leading off instead of Mason Wynn, but that's for them to decide, I guess. Lars Nootbaar at 34-28, 9 homers, 7 steals, over 352 chances. Does have power, does have speed, is hitting the ball effectively with a 10% barrel rate, 51% hard hits. I feel like if we gave Nootbaar another 300 plate appearances, his numbers wouldn't look too bad. But right now, it's just kind of impacted by a long absence and then kind of a slow start. Pedro Pajes, Michael Ciani makes a match quality at the bottom of the lineup, 88 and 70 WRC+ so far this year. On the Blue Jays side, you get George Springer in the top spot for a cheap price, 45, 3,000. Easy enough to reach, but it's been a problematic Springer season. 19 homers, 14 steals is great, but 221, 306, 378. And I mean great, not like actually outstanding. I mean great, like, oh, fantastic for you. It's not a good season out of George Springer any way you slice it. 18.9% strikeouts is okay, 9.9% walks, but he's not exactly crushing the ball. The barrel rate is good. The hard hits are mediocre. Hasn't resulted in much output at all with a 157 ISO. He's 3 points below average for run creation. He's just gotten cheap for the name brand and what we know the counting stat output can look like when he's going right. As long as he's putting bat on ball and getting to first base via the walk, there is a little bit of individual upside. He gains correlated scoring upside from hitting leadoff every day. Has a lot of plate appearances. So there's any given slate potential in going to George Springer. And against Eric Fede, I have no issues with it. It's a pitcher that I used to like to target, and now he's just okay. So Springer belongs in Blue Jays stacks, but he's another guy who doesn't really draw the eye to the Blue Jays stack. That's Vladdy's job. 5,500, 3,500 for him. He's slashing 321, 394, 547, 226 ISO, 28 homers. Very appealing at first. Still has third base eligibility on FanDuel for 35. Not a bad option at all. In between the two, you've got a lefty power bat in Nathan Lukes. Hasn't hit for any power in 33 plate appearances yet, but slashing 357, 424, 464 is off to a good start. Has created runs 54% better than average so far in the show. Oh, I misremembered Lukes. My apologies, guys. Lukes is more of a... that's actually... I'm going to correct it again. 7 home runs, but it came in 231 plate appearances. I saw that and I panicked. Last year in 2023, 5 home runs in 222 opportunities, 11 with 20 stolen bases and 484 opportunities in AAA back in 2022. I'll revise to more like a maybe Tommy Edman style 15, 18 home run type guy with some stolen base upside on top of that, and a very good hit and on base skill set. This year in his 231 chances, 333, 403, 469, had been creating runs 31% better than average at AAA. Last year, over 222 chances, 366, 423, 530 with a 143 WRC+. Very low strikeout at 11.3%. That was also low this year. It was low the year before in the 484 plate appearances, 285, 364, 425, a 111 WRC+. So not much of a power bat. I misspoke there, but a good bat to find for 3,100, 2,500 with a lot of skills, low strikeout, and high walk so far. So interesting hitter to have second for a cheap price. Spencer Horwitz, high on base guy. That combination might drive some offense here, might drive some run creation here. Just the ability to get on base and make things happen between those two players now. Both of them are also lefties. This is a more dynamic lefty-righty configuration of this lineup now. Harwitz has 12 home runs in 320 plate appearances, a 194 ISO, and again, a killer on base and run creation mark, 137 WRC plus so far. Will Wagner's been hitting the ball hard. Very low strikeout, low walk. So this is a lot of well-struck balls in play in his 81 chances so far. He's slashing 312, 346, 468, so he's seeing the results. He's hit 2 home runs. Just a 156 ISO means he hasn't exactly collected a ton of extra base hits in the small sample, but as long as he hits the ball that hard and that frequently, we're going to find extra base hits and some home run upside and some run creation ability along the way. So I like what I see so far. 33-28, easy to play at second base on both sides. Don't know that I would slot him into first with the other options and other teams, but second works for me. Alejandro Kirk, a mix and match catcher, not a ton of quality there. 5 home runs in 337 plate appearances this year. Addison Barger's been fairly high strikeout so far. 7 home runs in 180 plate appearances is okay. 188 ISO, but a little problematic and inconsistent down lineup. Ernie Clement, just a 288 on base. He has hit 11 home runs and stolen 11 bases. Just 1% below average creating runs. He's the most interesting hitter at the bottom, and mostly just because he's constantly putting the ball into play. 8.9% strikeouts and 2.3% walks in 394 plate appearances. Slashing 267, again, the on base is disappointing. You'd like to see some more BABIP, but it's the BABIP that's going to have to carry him there. He doesn't walk at all. But I just like buying cheap balls in play when I'm looking for bottom of the lineup DFS options, and Ernie Clement fits that bill to a T. Loperfido, disappointing year with just 4 home runs, a lot of inconsistency, very, very high strikeout. Not too much to say about upside for Joe Loperfido. He's at least cheap. This one probably goes Blue Jays bats, Kevin Gausman, Cardinals bats, Eric Fede for me. But I do think all 4 pieces are at least loosely playable. I don't love the Cards. The Cards lineup, the low total, the lackluster performance all season, the idea that Gausman is a at least halfway decent pitcher in mediocre pitcher's clothing on a lot of nights. I think there's upside on his side. I don't really love the Cards. So at least 3 out of 4 things are good. Rays lineup, Guardians lineup. Sure, we got some of these. Guardians are in, Rays are not. So Tanner Bybee should definitely pick up some upside here. He's got a 26.3% strikeout rate this season, 3.56 ERA with a 3.77 xFIP. Just a good young pitcher. Had a successful debut season last year, over 25 starts, 24.1% Ks with a 2.98 ERA, a 4.22 xFIP, and improving on those numbers in a lot of ways this year. Last time out went just 5, 4 strikeouts, 3 walks, 2 earned on 4 hits to the Dodgers. That's not a bad start against the Dodgers. He took the loss, but it wasn't really his fault. 6 innings of quality against the Royals. Found 6 strikeouts along the way. 3 walks, just 1 earned on 2 hits. Had a couple of clunkers in a row, 5-run game and a 4-run game against the Royals in a different start before that one, and then against the Rangers. Feels like his price came down a little bit unfairly, though, because of those 2 starts and hasn't gone back up. 83 is cheap against a Rays team that's, this version's a 21.5% strikeout rate, but that's the 0 there. The true strikeout rate there is 24.1 if we exclude that 0. And we've seen different configurations of this Rays lineup push up as high as 27-28% this year. So there are definitely strikeouts available for Tanner Bybee today. I really like this option at 85-83. I think he is mispriced pretty dramatically. He should be probably 1,000 more on both sides. That's a really cheap price for a very good pitcher in a good matchup. This is a bad Rays lineup. Am I missing something with Bybee? Yeah, Steven correctly pointing out that there are some positional blockers with that Toronto lineup on DraftKings, which continues to suck. Harwitz needs multi-position eligibility. Zach Littell on his side at 71. I just don't like targeting this Guardians lineup. All their good hitters are super low strikeout. It's problematic. They gained some strikeout downside in the back end of the lineup in this version with Manzardo, with Jhonkensy Noel, and then Bo Naylor, kind of a most days catcher. There are Ks at the back of the lineup. Some of that is small sample, but it's probably realistic that these power bats are going to swing and miss quite a bit. But when all of the top end hitters are that good at not striking out, it has a bigger impact, I think, than a couple of free swingers down lineups. So don't love the upside for Littell. He's pitched okay, 3.89 ERA, a 4.21 xFIP, not really walking that many, at 5.2%. There's nothing wrong with that. The 10.6% swinging is decent. Should find some more Ks along the way. 20.6%, kind of underwhelming. 26.2% CSW is a bit low for that swinging strike rate. He's allowed too many base runners for the low walk rate. 9.2% barrels, pushing the edge of the hard hit range, pushing the edge of the exit velo. This is a very realistic 3.54% home runs, and Stuff Plus doesn't really love the arsenal if you need a tiebreaker. So 71.82, you can get to around the medians with maybe 4 or 5 points of upside in any direction. Or well, that wouldn't always be upside then. 4 or 5 points of potential upside, but I don't see a true ceiling for Zach Littell as compared to a lot of the pitchers on this slate. So I really don't like it. Would stack Guardians against. I like the power numbers that I'm seeing for several of these guys. I like the, again, just low strikeout nature of these hitters. There's a lot of talent in Jose Ramirez and Josh Naylor, so easy enough to get to the Guardians. Question becomes, do you go to the Rays at all against Tanner Bybee? I don't think you really need to. Even if you're building a big wall of Tanner Bybee shares, I think he's just good enough to justify it against his team. It's not a position where I feel overly inclined to say you have to hedge. You can if you want to, if that's your thing, if you hedge off every pitching position, but to me that wastes lineups. So no real issue there, and it's not the best contrarian choice team on the board. Showing a little bit of home run upside for the top 3 hitters. Chris Morel's a decent home run bat, but he's also slashing 197, 292, 357 this year. He's at 21 homers and 571 plate appearances. That's just okay output. It's not anything overly special. 18 homers and 367 chances out of Brandon Lau, a true power hitter at second base as a lefty bat. Also has first base eligibility, fairly priced across sites. Not a bad option. Would probably be one of my top few choices out of this Rays lineup. 241 ISO, 129 WRC+. One of just 2 guys above average for run creation in this projected version of the Rays lineup. The other one's Yandy Diaz. You guys know that I like Yandy. He's having a bit of a down year, but he's still hitting the ball fairly hard. 49.7% hard hit. Still low strikeout, low walk. A lot of balls in play. It's just this year the results haven't been quite where we want them. 136 ISO. 341 on base is still good, but it was better last year. 284 average is still good, but it was better last year. Home run output was better last year as well. So there's been more downside this year from Yandy, but he is still one of their best players and one of the top priority bats in this lineup. Junior Caminero, 41.29. Caminero. 47% hard hits so far in the show. Not bad for the high-end rookie. 3 home runs, 2 steals, and 121 plate appearances, and 95 WRC plus so far. Would be in my stacks if I was stacking Rays, but I just don't think this is a great spot to stack Rays. Josh Lowe's another player who warrants inclusion in those opportunities. 9 home runs, 23 steals on the season. Mediocre 334 plate appearances for him, but he was much better last year. Has a lot of ability. Is barreling the ball 10.2% of the time with a 45.9% hard hit rate. It's just the strikeouts have gone way up this year. The issues have been more frequent for Lowe when he's been on the field this year. Caballero's just a mix and match guy. He steals bases, but he doesn't do much else. Just a 292 on base and a 90 WRC plus, despite 40 stolen bases and 445 plate appearances. Jonathan Hernandez, cheap, mix and match quality, 3 positions on FanDuel. 2 home runs and 89 plate appearances, hasn't been very special so far. Johnny DeLuca, cheap, mix and match at best. 6 homers, 16 steals, pretty mediocre, 79 WRC plus. And then Logan Driscoll's in the lineup, the projected version anyway, as a dead cheap dirt cheap dead min. Can't talk today. Dirt cheap dead min price catcher on FanDuel. 21 on DraftKings, close enough. Hasn't done anything yet in the show. Seven home runs in AAA this season. Got up to 10, 12 across 2 levels of minor leagues last year. Limited hitter. Looks like a catcher, Not a great option at the bottom of the Rays lineup if he plays at all. This is the confirmed Guardians lineup. It's close to what we're seeing on a daily basis against righties. Noel's the guy who comes and goes a little bit in platoon situations. Sometimes they've worked him out of the lineups, but I'm glad he's here today because he's pulling an 11.42 in the home run model. He's hit 13 already with a 294 ISO and just 171 opportunities so far. His high strikeout, Does push the strikeout number up for the bottom of this Guardians lineup, but he's a real power threat late in the lineup. 17.2% barrels so far to dramatically lead this team, almost doubling up everybody else, including Jose Ramirez, Josh Naylor. Neither of those guys has dramatic contact numbers, but both of those guys are very, very good. 34 homers and 39 stolen bases for Jose Ramirez. 270, 329, 510 on the season, a 240 ISO, 131 WRC plus. Naylor for 4,500 is a bargain on DraftKings. 36 is correct on FanDuel. He's got an 11.69 in the home run model. He's hit 29 this season, 218 ISO, 119 WRC plus. Top 2 priority bats. Priority number 3 right there. And then you've got a lot of ways you can take it. If you need a cheap second baseman, Andres Jimenez can fill that role. He hasn't been good this season, but he hasn't been completely terrible either. The 84 WRC plus is disappointing. A lot of in and out of the lineup, a lot of down lineup days. Hitting second is kind of ideal for him. He just needs to focus on getting on base. He's a low strikeout, low walk guy, so he rides on balls in play and kind of lives and dies with that. But if you get a little bit of good fortune, he can have a multi-hit day ahead of the core of this lineup that you're going to have. So he is a key piece of stacking, and he's very cheap at a key position at second base. Steven Kwan is more obvious, 4,700, 3,200 in the outfield. He's slashing 291, 364, 419, a dynamite table setter in the leadoff spot. He'll be more popular and he's more expensive. It's closer on FanDuel, separated by $100, outfield and second base. But Kwan tends to fall a little bit more into just another outfielder bucket. While Jimenez has been a disappointing second baseman, I would kind of rather have my just another guy at second base than in the outfield if I can buy a premium outfielder for that money. So I think Kwan does go into lineups and he does correlate very well with some of these guys down lineup, but he is kind of just truly a correlated scoring option. He doesn't even really steal bases given his ridiculous on-base percentage. I like Lane Thomas, 41-32. He's hit 11 home runs and stolen 32 bases. The numbers are normalizing a little bit to last year's very, very good numbers. 103 WRC plus on the season. He's got power. He's got speed. He's putting the ball in play effectively. 41.3% hard hits this year against 25.7% strikeouts. Manzardo is a premium rookie at first base, 27-25. He's a very different option than Josh Naylor just because he completely lacks experience, but he's a kid who's supposed to have power. He's hit 2 home runs already in the show in 119 plate appearances, carrying a 9.9% barrel rate. It's not nothing. So if you need a very cheap alternative, I'm not advocating strongly saying going away from Josh Naylor is a good idea because he's very cheap at 45 for his upside. But if you need the additional savings, a few times in a bunch of Guardian stacks, you can go Manzardo at first base even on DK. Put them together on FanDuel works for me. 2,500 and 3,600 mass out pretty well for a lot of power at the position. Noel, again, priority bat. And then Bo Naylor, mix and match quality catcher. 12 home runs, a very low-end triple slash at just a 79 WRC plus and a ton of strikeouts. Rocho puts the ball in play but doesn't do much with it. 8 home runs, 10 steals, a 303 on base, and 82 WRC plus. So the quality's from like 7 up, but I do like the top 7 hitters there. Tanner Bybee, Guardians bats. And then I'd probably say Zach Littell above the Rays bats. That's how much I think of Bybee and how little I think of this Rays lineup this year. Littell is very, very borderline. Again, I really don't think there's a lot of ceiling there against this Guardians team. Dodgers and the Braves, both of these lineups are in. Help us keep on breezing through. 4:30 here. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. No time like the present to check out our guys over at acemind.io for your sim and optimization needs. Guys got some killer product up for NFL. Helped me to yet another frustrating, had the third best lineup but was tied with 60 people kind of a finish on FanDuel last night in that showdown slate. Keep on just putting lineups right there. So confident we'll get a fair share of chops again from the top spot like we have the last couple of seasons and like we did last year with using that product. Just want to drill that single, that solo winner. So, Max Schwellenbach I really do like Spencer Schwellenbach. I think he's a very talented kid. 26.7% strikeouts and a dominant 14% swinging strike rate so far in his 17 starts. His 97 and 2/3 in the show. 30.1% CSW is dynamite. He's been good at limiting home runs, keeping the ball in the park and mostly on the ground. 11.2 degree average launch, 2.99% home runs, 5.2% barrels. Schwelly's good. It's just the Dodgers are also really good, and they're low strikeout. 26.7% Ks and just a 4.7% walk, though. There's a lot of appeal here. It's just 9,800. I feel like it should be 1,000 less if I have to tackle the Dodgers on top of things. So while I like the pitcher, while I do think he'll be low owned and you could maybe get away with it, I don't think it's a good price fit to try on a deep slate with the Dodgers in town. Knack on the other side of it, a 3.0 ERA on the nose over 54 innings in 9 starts. He's got a 24% strikeout rate. Very solid sub-1 whip. 10.3% swinging, just a 27.7% CSW. Problems kind of creep in around the premium contact. We're over the line for hard hits, just under it by 0.2 of a mile an hour on exit velo. It's resulted in a 4.61% home run rate because he's an extreme fly ball pitcher with a 21.1 degree average launch. Dicey against the home run focused Braves team. You can see 4 guys in the heart of the Braves lineup above the magic number for home run upside. I tend to prefer Braves bats. I tend to prefer Dodgers bats in this one. At 75, 76, though, I mean, you can maybe from the bargain bin consider a few shares, but he's not like true bargain bin, though. He's more like the value rack, if we had to have to extend that analogy even further. Right, like the value rack is where they hang things like, you know, shirts and dresses and stuff that like they want to move last year's fashions. But people might still wear them. They might still be happy to find them there. The bargain bin is just like people just looking for crap. Trying to find something appealing in amongst the dregs. So Knack doesn't quite fall into that bucket price-wise. But I think that's the kind of opportunity that you're buying. So probably paying a little bit too much for it. Shohei Ohtani, 7,000, 5,000 at the top of the board. 47 homers, 48 stolen bases. Absolute superstar. 20.4% barrels, 58.9% hard hits. Very few do it any better than Ohtani. He's worth paying for. I feel like I still just get an update from Yahoo basically every day saying that he hit another home run. Might run down Aaron Judge with Judge's little mini slump going on. So we'll see where that comes out to by the end. But Ohtani's tremendous at the top. 14.90, the only guy above the magic number. But you get 2 guys in the 7s to follow him with Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, 2 absolute superstars in their own right. 3-position eligible Mookie is still fantastic on FanDuel. Second base and shortstop eligible. He's just an outfielder on DraftKings, but he's a high-end outfielder. Freddie, a little bit cheap, 53.35 for, perceived struggles. As a guy we're used to seeing hit at 300, we're used to seeing him a little bit higher in the on-base department, around 400, maybe a couple few more home runs, 200-plus ISO, but I mean, we are just under all those numbers. We're quibbling lowering his price at all. 53.35, he looks tremendous to me. A couple of guys in the 9s in the home run model with Teoscar Hernandez and Max Muncy, righty-lefty tandem with tons and tons of power. 28 home runs for Teoscar, 14 for Max Muncy in just 234 plate appearances. As I've been highlighting since he returned to the lineup, do not sleep on Max Muncy. 12.2% barrels, 47.3% hard hits. The guy crushes the ball. He draws a ton of walks, 14.5% this year, 14.7% last year. Gets on base like crazy, is a run contributor, so he's a correlated scoring option when he's not hitting home runs. He's carrying a 283 ISO this year. Last year, Muncy hit 36 homers in 579 plate appearances, had a 263 ISO, 118 WRC+. This is the good version of those Joey Gallo type hitters, right? This is Max Muncy. Max Muncy finds his results where some of those other guys tend to fail. He is a definition of a 3 true outcomes hitter. He's very, very good for the money. 4,900 is too cheap on DraftKings for Max Muncy. Even against a good pitcher like Schwelly, there's just tons of upside. And again, he hasn't gotten burnt from many home runs. He's been good at limiting them. There's still upside. Tommy Edman's been good for this Dodgers team, slashing 300, 321, 500 so far, a 200 ISO, 4 home runs, and 5 stolen bases in 84 plate appearances. That's the best possible version of Tommy Edman right out of the gate with the Dodgers here. Multi-position eligible, still very cheap on both sites. He's a guy who's done it before. With Edman, he'll live and die a little bit by correlated scoring in the end. but he's capable of having runs like this where he's providing some home runs. He's constantly stealing bases. Interesting to keep him down here. I mean, they want to keep that intact with the elite top end, so I get it. But has been a leadoff hitter very frequently in his career. He's an interesting option to reset the table for good hitters like Will Smith and Gavin Lux. Miguel Rojas, no slouch as far as the average and putting the ball in play, maybe helping turn the lineup over at the bottom. So really dynamic player to have right there. The thing I was going to say is I might have actually considered sliding him to 5 and putting Muncy behind him just to give him one more opportunity at a table setter ahead of a power bat. It's not that they put together a bad lineup. I have no issues with what they did. But I think I might have done that instead. Just a slight wrinkle there. But again, that's talking about the lineup rather than the DFS upside. Dodgers 1 through 9 is pretty terrific. You get to them any way you can. Mikey Harrison, the top spot for the Braves, 4,2900, 11 home runs this season. Disappointing 287 ISO, disappointing 83, 17 points below average WRC plus mark. Medium strikeout, pretty low walk, a lot of well-struck balls, but has not found good results for him this season. Last year finished up at 18 homers, 20 steals, 293, 331, 477 with a 115 WRC plus in a good season. He's good just given the price and the potential plate appearances. But it's been a tough year for Harris, like a lot of these Braves. Soler still crushing the ball, 11.3% barrels, 42.5% hard hits, but those numbers are down for him. 25.2% strikeouts against 12.2% walks. He's still getting on base at a good clip, still a positive run creator with a 111 WRC+, but he's not paid to get on base, draw walks, create runs. He's paid to create runs, but not that way. He's paid to hit home runs, and he's only got 17 of them with a 182 ISO this year. Disappointing season from Soler, but he's gotten very, very cheap, and he's going up against a guy who's got a 4.61% home run rate. He's carrying an 11.52 in the home run model. I like the upside for Roy Soler. He's one of the reasons I don't really like Landon Knack today. 52.37 for Marcell Ozuna, who's still slashing 303, 376, 557 this year. 254 ISO, a monster 37 home run total. Killer premium contact profile. Nothing wrong with going to Marcell Ozuna, one of the slate leaders at an 18.75 in the home run model. Matty Olson has an 11.94. Travis d'Arnaud not far behind at 10.26. d'Arnaud, over 304 plate appearances, another very successful season for the 60-40 catcher split timeshare, whatever we want to call it. 212 ISO, 14 homers, excellent premium contact numbers once again. He's not really a good secret that we've got over here anymore. Everybody knows that he's just a good backup catcher who, whenever he's in the lineup, it's essentially the same as having their power hitting starter there. So happy to get him. Probably going to find some popularity at these prices in this spot. Ramon Laureano, kind of interesting numbers for Laureano. He's 4% above average for run creation. 8 home runs and 7 steals in 249 chances is not terrible. He's striking out a ton and not really drawing a lot of walks, but a very solid 12.2% barrel rate, 41.2% hard hits. He's been squaring the ball up pretty effectively. And this was like, at one point it looked like the last lingering bits of his skills were there. And right now he's seeing decent results for it. It might disappear completely. It is results-based to say that he's having an okay year over a half a season. But he kind of is. Orlando Arcia is not having a good year. 16 home runs is fine, but 74 WRC plus is very disappointing. 70 for Gio Urshela and 81 for Whit Merrifield down lineup. Another pair of disappointing offensive players, though you shouldn't have been expecting much from Gio. Merrifield should be able to give you a little bit more in terms of the average on base, a little bit more counting stat upside, but has been diminished mostly this season. Had a good stretch when he first joined the Braves, back down to the 9 spot in the lineup. A little bit less relevant. Close. I'm going to give it to the Braves, given the power upside. Braves bats and the downside of the pitcher. Braves bats, Dodgers bats. Schwellenbach by a mile over Landon Knack, but Knack makes the board for a little bit of strikeout upside for a fair price. I just don't really like that spot on a deep slate. But it is very, very loosely a 4-corner spot. In some ways, Knack is a better option than Schwelly, just because Schwelly got the downside of the Dodgers' ability to limit strikeouts with an equal threat for runs. So, take it or leave it. All right, this is an important one to talk about. Brady Basso. We've got both lineups in, which is helpful. If you weren't here earlier, we're doing a football show tonight. It's going to be a bit of a marathon. It's going to start up at 8 o'clock. It's already on the schedule, so I've got no way to get out of it at this point. I mean, technically, I could just click cancel if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to. We'll be here. We'll be talking quarterbacks, stacks, skill players, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, defenses, whatever you guys want to talk about. We're going through the, hopefully, new look board that fits on the screen. I'm keeping my fingers crossed about the fitting on the screen correctly, but we might have to do some scrolling. But hopefully it'll be a little bit more efficient with everything in one dashboard now. If you're at the site, projections went up midweek. They've gotten one update. They'll get another one. Rankings are up. The stack rankings are in the optimizer article. The optimizer groups are completed in there. The notes are about halfway complete. They'll get finished up tonight. And then they'll be updated tomorrow. A lot going on over at rotoscouts. All right, so Basso checks in for the Deadman $4,000 price on the mound on DraftKings. He looks like a fantastic buy. He actually projects out as a playable starter on FanDuel for $6,000. He's not a bad option just in a vacuum. And these sites priced him like they did. I mentioned his debut start. Or I'm sorry, it wasn't. It was first start. He had made three relief appearances prior to that. Went 2 innings back on June 16th. And then was, I believe, pitching in the minors. Recalled on the 7th to face the Tigers. 6 innings, faced 22 hitters. Struck out 6, walked 1. 3 hits allowed, no runs. The fact that we got 6 innings is the only thing I need to care about on there. The fact that we got strikeouts along with it is great. The fact that he didn't give up any runs is fantastic. But I really, really only care about the innings, and he gave me 6 of them. So for my $6,000 on FanDuel, I've got security of knowing that if things are going well against this pathetic White Sox team, kid's probably going to be allowed to go 6 innings here. He was pitching fairly deep into games down the last few games in the minors through August. His August starts went 5 innings, 2-run ball, 6 innings of shutout ball, 3 1/3, but he gave up 5 in that one. A little problematic there. 4 home runs allowed. That was to the Dodgers affiliate. That's an ugly one. But came back off that 6 innings and then a 5-inning start. 1 earned run on 4 hits across the 11 innings in the 2 combined starts. Struck out 9 combined hitters and walked 2. So had been on a decent stretch of depth, decent stretch of quality outside of that one outlier game. Now gets to draw against the White Sox, who are decidedly worse than the Tigers. The Tigers are actually loosely in contention for the second AL wildcard spot. The White Sox are one of the worst teams in baseball history. So I don't really understand why he came in at $4,000 today. I don't really understand why he's at $6,000. You can absolutely fire away on both sites. You're probably more secure here, where he doesn't really need to do anything at all other than take the mound, and you're paid off. Over here, I'd at least like to get my 6 innings, my quality start, because I do think there are a bunch of pitchers with pretty big ceilings on this slate. But he's not without ceiling. Garrett Crochet is pretty much without ceiling because we're probably only getting 3 innings. Unfortunately. It sucks what they've been doing to him because now the numbers don't even look all that great. The strikeouts are still fantastic. The swinging strike rate, the CSW aren't going anywhere. The walk rate is still good. The xFIP is still terrific. But they've got his ERA now pushed up to 3.83 in what had been a just sparklingly good-looking season. The xFIP is the number we actually care about, but when you look at the baseball card, you know, when kids look at him 10 years from now and try and remember who Garrett Crochet might have been in that one year that he was good, it'll be like, 3.83, yeah, that's not that great. Doesn't really tell the story of Garrett Crochet's tremendous first half this year. But we haven't seen more than 4 innings since June 30th, so I think we're not playing him here, gang. 6,900, 7,800, even at price, I really don't see the upside. You're not going to get your win. You're not going to get your quality start. You might find a few strikeouts along the way, but the A's are actually showing some decent projections up at the top of the lineup. We've highlighted the top of this lineup a number of times lately for their power, for their decent on-base acumen and run creation ability. It's a different version of the top end of the A's lineup, but this version is also somewhat effective. So just don't like the spot for Crochet even at price. If you're going to the A's against, which I do think you could do, get Lawrence Butler at the top, lefty, not going to be problematic in probably what will amount to one plate appearance. If he gets the second plate appearance against Crochet, things have gone well. Against fellow lefties this year anyway, Butler is slashing 299, 329, 552. He's actually been better against fellow lefties. A 150 WRC+, 254 ISO, 4 of his 21 home runs in just 70 plate appearances. So it's a limited sample over which he's shown a ton of quality in same-handed opportunities. Kind of unnecessarily platooning him for a while there, I think. Brent Rooker has 36 home runs, 102 ribbies, 370 on base, a 580 slug with a 282 ISO, striking out just 28.5% of the time, still drawing his walks, crushing the ball when he makes contact with it. Love the improvements that he made this season. I think everything we see this year is pretty much real outside of probably the batting average. That'll come and go with a little bit of fortune one way or the other. But the home runs, the quality, the dip in strikeouts, everything I think is very real. It's just demonstrative, real improvements that he's made. Tremendous option at 55-38 against the lefty, and then whatever comes out of the bullpen for the White Sox. Shea Langoliers, 41-27, 25 homers at 217 ISO, a very playable catcher for honestly a cheap price on DraftKings where you have to play the position. Not a bad option considering the lack of first base quality on this team on the FanDuel slate. Daz Cameron at 31-24. You want to know a secret? Secret is Daz Cameron's hitting the ball extremely hard. 8.4% barrels, 50.5% hard hits over his 167 plate appearances. It's amounted to just a 132 ISO, a 192, 257, 325 slash line, a 68 WRC+, just 5 homers and 5 steals. There's no quality here. That's why it's a secret. He's hitting the ball very, very hard. 3,100, 2,400 in your outfield hitting cleanup today against the lefty to start the game, and then who knows what out of the White Sox bullpen. Daz Cameron works for me. I mean, not yet, but once I put him in my lineup, he'll work for me, hopefully, tonight. Zach Geloff, 32-28, 17 homers, 23 steals. The rest of the line kind of sucks, but the counting stats have been pretty good over 489 plate appearances. He was better last year while providing similar counting stat upside. 32-28, you can do a lot worse than that at second base. JJ Bleday, 38-28 across sites, 20 home runs for the lefty over 586 plate appearances, a solid 206 ISO. Typically hits higher up and dips against the lefty, but there's no reason you couldn't go to him again because we're probably going to get a righty out of the bullpen to extend the rest of the game. Jake Wilson, 25-22, good bat on ball skills, good minor league numbers for on base and correlated scoring. So far in the show, low strikeout, low walks, and balls in play, hasn't hit him very hard. 52 plate appearances of meh so far, but I think he's very playable. 25-22 at shortstop. I wish he was a second baseman. Can't have everything. Tyler Nevin, 27-21, is very cheap. He's got 7 home runs, but limited in the ISO, the WRC+, as is Max Schumann. Both guys 7 homers. Max has added 14 stolen bases. They're at best mix and match guys at the bottom. I would not, could not, should not play the White Sox. I don't recommend that you do, but if you're going there, you at least get a inexperienced young lefty pitcher who just recently gave up 5 earned runs to a AAA team. See, you can flip those things. They've got one underperforming superstar, one interesting and in a better spot in the lineup third baseman for a cheap price. Dead min price on FanDuel, in fact. And then a whole bunch of guys I don't really want to play. Is it a 2-man a few times as a contrarian? Maybe. Getting Brian Ramos and Lubob for $7,000 total for the price of an Ohtani isn't the worst idea in the world. This kid's going to be ridiculously popular on DraftKings, I think. Probably similarly popular on FanDuel, but just absurdly popular over here. I think everybody's probably talking about that spot today. So if you want to target a little bit of popularity, if you're building out a bunch of DraftKings lineups, I'm not necessarily even advocating the full hedge because the White Sox actually are that bad. So even in a good day where they beat Brady Basso, it's probably only like 4 runs. But maybe you could pick off a little quality considering these guys are just 7,000 combined. On FanDuel, they're just 51 combined. As bad a season as he's having, Luis Robert still does have 14 homers, 21 steals, just an 83 WRC plus and a 166 ISO is the problem. A lot of strikeouts this year at 34%. Missed a big chunk of the season with an injury, and it really cost him. He never quite found his footing this year. So he's even just kind of okay. He's actually getting beat on the home run board by Andrew Benintendi now. He's also getting beat by Andrew Vaughn. The Benintendi one is absurd. The Vaughn one is weird, but at least he's supposed to be a power bat. Benintendi's more of a contact hitter. 157 and 156 ISOs for those guys respectively, 85 and 95 WRC plus. Vaughn's probably my third man in if I have to extend to a three-man. Ramos is interesting given the skill set in the leadoff spot, 26,200. The dead min price on FanDuel is really compelling for that player. He is a kid who I talked about him the other day. He's a Jose Miranda kind of a guy, a line drive hitter, a guy, Harold Ramirez kind of a hitter. Guy who can hit 300, a guy who could put the ball in play with a 40-ish% hard hit rate. He's at 42.6 over his 60 plate appearances so far. He'll come and go with the success on balls in play. He's not a tremendous home run bat, but he's going to be a low strikeout, low walk, put the ball in play, and hit it hard kind of a player. So hit a home run this week at low price. Great spot in the lineup in the leadoff position. Lenyn Sosa at least hits the ball hard. 5.6% barrels, 42.1% hard hits. It's only resulted in 4 homers and 313 chances. A sub 1 ISO, pretty bad. Mix and match quality at the absolute outside. Corey Lee is just cheap at the catcher spot. He has 10 home runs, but he's just kind of bad overall. Dom Fletcher, 55 WRC plus, 54 WRC plus. I have Miguel Vargas, and whatever Jacob Maya is doing is entirely skippable at the bottom. The White Sox are like 2 deep. You could stretch and call it like 4 deep, but bad team, bad spot. Take the value pitcher and run with it. Even though he's chalky, I think you just take the free square. I really do. FanDuel, it's obviously more debatable because you only get 1 pitcher. But as the SP2 over here, I think it's just a free square that you book. Doesn't even have to be that good to overcome the popularity, really. Basso. Oof. A's bats. Brian Ramos and Luis Robert, 2-man. Then, your White Sox stacks where you get him, and don't play Garrett Crochet. He's not going to pitch enough. What are you guys talking about? Power says stacking against DeGrom is the leverage. Robles is a lock one-off. I don't know if I can advocate for stacking against Jake DeGrom. Even in a short start. I'm going to go to a team that potentially has the top completely taken off over 4 innings. Dicey. I know everybody will be thinking that way. I'm sure they're not going to be popular. I'll give you that part of it. I just don't know that the upside part of your, the leverage, not only do you have to fit the crowbar underneath whatever you're trying to lift, but it also has to not snap when you push down on it and actually try and lift the object. I think you've only got one of those 2 parts of your leverage equation there. Bobby Basso, I love Jake Swells. That's a great combination. Ober Basso, I think, works power. So here's Ober right here. 8,600, 9,800 across sites. Love the price on DK. 98, you can get there on FanDuel. He's just one of the guys on FanDuel, though. Just kind of fits in with a lot of guys at the top. What I love about Ober that I highlighted at the beginning of the show, you get a lot of fairly reliable depth out of Bailey Ober. Even the bad days, they can... Well, no, I shouldn't say that. The bad days do get pretty bad with Bailey Ober from time to time. 9 earned runs, most specifically just 3 starts ago against Atlanta. 6 earned run game earlier in the year. And an 8 earned run game in his first start of the season. You can kind of discount that one. But the blow-ups have been few and far between, really, this season. 3.77 ERA with a 3.93 xFIP. That's right about in line with expectations. It's about who Bailey Ober is. Doesn't walk that many, 6.4% walk rate, and a sub-1 whip is outstanding. 13.7% swinging strike rate is terrific. A 29.3% CSW is very solid. He's been pitching well. The strikeout numbers, swinging strikes are in line with last year, but the CSW has gone up notably. Yeah, same thing from 2 years ago. So he picked up 2 percentage points of CSW without really moving his swinging strike rate. So just throwing some more called strikes, It's been an effective little spike. He's had a number of the 7, 8, 9 strikeout games. He's got a pair of 10 strikeout games in his ledger this year and an 11 strikeout game. He's also pitched into the 8th a couple of times. He had a complete game this year. Pitched into the 6th inning and completed the 6th inning in easily more than half of his starts, just eyeballing this. So against a fairly free swinging Reds squad, there's upside. We'll see what version of the Reds lineup we've got. Aguilar on the other side, I think, is just a target for Reds bats here. Given the power that the Reds are showing, given the near Slate leading run total outside of Coors Field, it is the Slate leader. I think we just buy Twins bats. Aguilar so far an underwhelming 5.06 ERA, covering up an uglier 6.11 xFIP. He struck out just 11.6% of hitters in his 5 starts, 21 1/3 innings, and he's given up a 5.26% home run rate on a monstrous barrel rate. The hard hit is actually hilariously low, as is the exit velo. That's not a bad exit velocity, but obviously on trajectory and contact, he's lost a couple. That really amounts to a 3 home run game, 3 starts back on the 29th against the Athletics. Went just 4 innings, gave up 6 runs, 3 home runs, 1 strikeout, 1 walk. And then the 2 starts before that, he gave up a home run in each game. Wasn't terrible. Went 4 innings in his debut against Toronto, struck out 2, walked 1, gave up a homer, 2 earned on 4 hits. 2 earned on 3 hits in 6 innings against the Pirates in the next start, struck out 4, home run allowed. And then 2 short outings in the last 2. 2 2/3, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, 2 earned on 2 hits against the Astros. So just rolling 2s in that game. And then 4 2/3 against the Mets. 2 hits, faced 19 hitters, only allowed 2 hits, struck out 2, and walked 2, no runs. You'd like to have seen him at least complete 5 in that one if he was rolling kind of well. I'm not sure situationally why he came out after 4 2/3. I'm sure that the Mets had runners on in that spot, and it was prudent to pull him. But you'd like to see a little bit more depth if you're going to try and justify anything about the pitcher. But there's no strikeouts. It's not even a Kachanowicz level, because Kachanowicz at least had reliably given us several straight outings of 6+ innings. So we were just trying to pick off a cheap, depth start there. I don't think Aguilar is even offering us that. And you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, 5 guys above the magic number in the home run model for power upside for the Twins, plus Carlos Santana at 9.80 in the middle of the lineup. Edward Julian, a good lefty power bat, at 7.87 in the top spot. The entire Twins lineup averages to above the magic number at 10.71 for the full lineup, 12.34 for the top 6. So there's a lot of power showing from Minnesota. There's a lot of quality. They've got a strong run of good run creators there. They get on base at pretty effective clips. They've got Byron Buxton in the lineup. It's a good Twins team that is potentially better, and look how cheap they still are. On the Cincinnati side, if you're going to bats there against Ober, which is doable, and if you take a big position of Bailey Ober, it's probably advisable to hedge a little bit, given the downside that we know can come up from time to time. Indy is a good on-base and correlated scoring option with a 104 WRC plus off his 349 on base. He can also still give you some home run and stolen base upside. Hasn't been great in either department, but 14 and 12 is not bad. Elly De La Cruz is a superstar. 23 homers, 64 steals, a 211 ISO, 120 WRC plus. A lot of Ks, nearly 31%. That's pushing back up toward last year's 33.7 after he had improved it for much of the season. But just putting up tremendous numbers across the board and always worth getting to in red stacks. Tyler Stevenson, a very strong catcher option. And I tell you what, you could one-off some Tyler Stevenson here. Ober is not by any means ungettable for power. 8.6% barrels, 3.59% home runs on a 20-degree average launch. Stevenson's got 18 home runs with a 195 ISO, a 9.3% barrel, and 42.8% hard hits as a $4,000 catcher where you have to play the position. You can one-off that. You can definitely include him in stacks. Spencer Steer for 51.33, 3 positions on FanDuel. 19 homers, 25 steals, not bad. 174 ISO is a little underwhelming. 98 WRC plus, not great. But the counting stats are okay. The low strikeout, high walk keeps him involved. He's capable of delivering more than he has. Needs to get a little bit more consistent delivery. 51.33 as the second highest priced player on this team. Not necessarily ideal from that perspective, but with everybody else being pretty cheap, it just averages down anyway, so it doesn't really matter as long as you're stacking. 43-32 for TJ Friedel, 11 home runs and 9 steals for him. Kind of a similar player who's performing at even lower level to Spencer Steer. He's at least cheap and he's left-handed, so you can get to that spot if you're stacking this team up a little bit. Don't love Ty France, but he's cheap, 33-25. 12 home runs, 102 WRC+, plus, a mix and match first baseman. Santiago Espinal doesn't give you a ton, 9 homers, 10 steals, and 89 WRC+. Plus. Inconsistent at best, light hitting 2.2% barrels, 25.7% hard hits. Despite not really striking out or not walking, he doesn't do a lot at the plate. Jake Fraley for 37-27 across sites has stolen 20 bases, has a 95 WRC+, plus, mix and match outfielder. And then Noelvi Marte has been pretty bad at third base, 3,200, 2,600. He's hit 4 homers, stolen 8 bases, and 197 chances. $5.04. The longer we talk about baseball, the less time I have to continue preparing for football. 8 o'clock for football if you weren't here earlier. We're going 8 o'clock till sunrise talking about the football slate. Hopefully not. I feel like I should be doing like all-night breaks or something, like, get a bunch of baseball card packs, open packs during the show or something, just because it's going that long, and that late into the night. Anyway, not literally to sunrise, by the way. Being facetious, hopefully. Julian from the top spot of the Twins lineup, 31-25. Kind of an ideal bat to stick at second base against this pitcher. 7.87 in the home run model. He's got a 10.6% barrel rate. He's hit 8 out of the yard this season in 278 opportunities. Last year he had 16 in 408 chances with a 195 ISO. There's true lefty power there at a premium position second base where you just grab upside for such a cheap price. That's a great fit. Matt Wallner, home run pick of the day at just 4,000 on DraftKings. Absolute buyer. 3,100 on FanDuel. Absolute buyer. 220 plate appearances. Got 13 on the season. A 310 ISO and tremendous contact numbers. 21% barrels. 55.2% hard hits. Again, against a guy who's just throwing to contact. He's just up there throwing batting practice. This might as well be a home run derby pitcher. Maybe a little better than that, but you get me. 5.26% home runs so far. All these barrels. Matt Wallner's the ideal hitter to throw at this kid. Royce Lewis is right there as well. Tons of barrels out of him. 18.33 in the home run model. He's got 16 this year with a 265 ISO. If you don't like him, there's another lefty with power lurking for just 3,300, 2,900. He's got an 11.3 in the home run model. He's the team pick of the day. 10.2% barrels, 44.9% hard hits, 15 home runs and 356 plate appearances, 193 ISO. I give you Trevor Larnach. Not a bad cleanup option for 3,329. Carlos Santana, switch hitter, 3,600, 2,800. He's hit 21 home runs this year. He's got a 187 ISO. Medium contact option, but he's very low strikeout. He draws walks, so he stays involved when he's not hitting for power. Definitely an interesting option for a very cheap price for the still high-quality veteran. Byron Buxton, former potential superstar who maybe fell short of superstar status, but not really his fault. It's just through injuries. Anytime Byron Buxton's on the field, he is a true threat. 16 home runs, 275, 334, 528 with a 252 ISO, a 141 WRC plus in half a season this year. 12.79 in the home run model, 14.2% barrels, 48.2% hard hits. Exactly what he does on the field. That's directly in line with what he's done in seasons past. Just needs to be healthy and would be a star. It's a shame, but he's very cheap, and you definitely want him in your twin stacks because he's in the lineup today hitting 6th. Willie Castro, solid mix and match guy, multi-position on both sides, affordable on both sides. 330 on base, 80 runs scored, a 107 WRC plus are the key attributes. He's hit 11 home runs and stolen 13 bases, but you're really just buying the correlated scoring with Castro and the cheap multi-position eligibility. Jeffers has a little bit of power. He's hit 20 home runs this year, 218 ISO, not a bad catcher bat. Hitting 8th isn't great for him, but it's not terrible. Still an 11.63 in the home run model. On a site where you need catchers, to find him for just 43 is a bargain. 28, you can absolutely play him on FanDuel. Getting him and Carlos Santana in a late lineup stack, like a first base util outfield with Buxton, and even if you want to throw Castro into the mix and just go with those 4, go from 5 to 8, that's totally playable. You get 2 guys above the magic number, 1 just below it, and a high-quality on-base and correlated scoring guy in there. It leaves my favorite bats on the team out of the stack, but that is not a bad team. That is not a bad option. Brooks Lee in the bottom spot, 3,000 on DK at shortstop, fills 3 positions for 27, where he's a little bit more valuable on FanDuel, I think. 3 home runs, 3 steals, 146 plate appearances of just kind of meh. He's the most skippable guy in this lineup, but even he is at least playable against this pitcher. Love the 1 through 8, most particularly 1 through 6, but even that late lineup combination from 5 through 8 is at least compelling. Twins bats way up top, Bailey over second, Reds bats third, and do not play Aguirre. Coors Field game. We're going to breeze through pitching here. We've got the Rockies lineup. We don't have the Cubs lineup yet. So, Austin Gomber, 17.1% Ks, a 4.50 ERA with a matching 4.49 xFIP, giving up plenty of premium contact and power again. Limited for strikeouts. Not a bad pitcher as far as walks go. Capable of giving you depth, and they'll typically leave him out there to just die. But he is capable of giving up, of limiting earned runs. He's on a pretty solid run. Really hasn't had a terrible outing since June 12th, where he gave up 8 earned runs at Minnesota. Handful of 4 and 5 run games in this stretch that I'm talking about, don't get me wrong. He hasn't been good, but he hasn't been a complete disaster. There are some good starts in there. A 7-inning start a few games back, 5 strikeouts against Washington, 1 run allowed. Last time out, he went 8 against Atlanta. He struck out 6, just 1 earned run on 5 hits. Game before that, 3 earned on 8 hits over 6 to Baltimore, struck out 4, mediocre. 4 earned runs on 6 hits over 6 to the Yankees, struck out 4, walked 3, home run allowed. That's typically the start you're going to get. Add Coors Field on top of that, it equals a 6+ implied total for the Cubs, who look pretty playable here. They'll be really popular, though, and on a day like this where we're showing good offensive spots like the Twins in a lot of other situations, I have no issues going away from Coors Field. Across 150, I'm not talking about a full fade, but an undercut to what I'm sure is very high popularity on the Cubs, not a problem. I think you could probably do that and align with the slate pretty well. I think Assad pitching well in terms of ERA, but a much more revealing 4.65 xFIP tells the full story. 1.34 whip is too high. A nearly 10% walk rate is too high. 19.6% strikeouts is too low. 86 rating by Stuff Plus. Doesn't really like him. No swinging strikes, no called strikes to speak of. He's just a contact-oriented pitcher who was getting pretty fortunate to pitch to low ERA. A lot of good outcomes for him this year. Not necessarily a super talented guy. Does benefit, of course, from facing a Rockies team with a 27.9% strikeout rate for this lineup, and they're particularly bad against righties, but that's more of a road thing than it is a Coors Field thing. I'm more inclined to take the Rockies bats against, take their 5+ implied total. That is one of the highest marks on the slate. You've got some cheap, less than popular bats in this lineup on both sides, so I'm leaning Rockies over Assad. If you take a picture from this game, I would be more inclined to go Assad than Gomber, though, even with the 500 price difference. Really just a DraftKings conversation. But I wouldn't do it on either side. From the Cubs lineup, if you're going there, they're going to be, again, very popular. We don't have it yet, or at least Labs doesn't. Since it's Coors Field, I'll check if Underdog has it. Oh, Steven Kwan scratched from that Guardians lineup. New Guardians is Schneemann, Jimenez, Ramirez, Naylor, Thomas, Manzardo, Noel, Naylor, and Rocchio. So it's just a direct 1-for-1 Schneemann into the leadoff spot and left field. It makes him individually interesting in similar ways to Steven Kwan, but he's not Steven Kwan. And the rest of that lineup is the same. So Cubs is not in yet. But presumably Ian Happ, at least in the leadoff spot, 341 on base, a 209 ISO this season. Having a tremendous year, doing Ian Happ things out there, hitting the ball very hard, drawing a very good walk rate, getting on base like crazy, creating runs at a 24% better than average clip to sit second on this team. 5,300, 3,900 at Coors Field, that's not even a gigantic tax on DraftKings. He's been roughly around those prices, if memory serves. 39 on FanDuel is not all that aggressive. It's high, but it's not all that aggressive. Ian Happ is a good player. Dansby's having a disappointing year, but he is hitting the ball very hard, which plays very well in this ballpark. 14 homers, 16 steals on the season, and 93 WRC+. Some of the numbers creeping up a little bit. I'm just buying the premium contact from a player that I trust over the years at a good position and very cheap pricing for being in Coors Field on DK, 4,600. Nothing wrong with going to Dansby Swanson in this spot. Hopefully the struggles render him under-owned and you can pick it off. Seiya Suzuki and Cody Bellinger, 57 and 58 respectively. I buy it for Suzuki, a little bit less so for Bellinger, but both players are good. 352 on base and a 330 on base, 20 home runs for Suzuki. Bellinger, 17 home runs. 207 on base for Suzuki versus 166 for Bellinger. 133 WRC plus versus 112 for Bellinger. So, of course, Bellinger's the more high-priced. Strange decisions sometimes. Suzuki hits the ball much harder. He strikes out more. There is that, but otherwise, he's the better of the two options. Isaac Paredes definitely in play at just 49.35, 19 home runs, the ability to drive the ball a little bit, the ability to avoid strikeouts, draw walks against a bad low strikeout pitcher means he's going to put the ball in play in Coors Field. 9.45 in the home run model, you could definitely do worse. Patrick Wisdom, if he's in the lineup against the lefty, a lot of appeal there. 7.59 in the home run model could be believably higher. Excels against left-handed pitching. 17.6% barrels and 49.4% hard hits. It's resulted in a 241 ISO, 7 home runs and 148 chances this year. Last year, 23 and 302 with a 295 ISO. Year before that, 25 in 534 with a 220 ISO. He's never going to hit for average. He's never going to avoid striking out consistently. But there is definite power upside, especially in Coors Field, for just 3,700, 3,100 across sites. I think they forgot to price Patrick Wisdom up at all. Nico Horner, 51.33, 28 steals on the season, mid-grade kind of on-base percentage, just a 96 WRC+, but a player who could definitely get involved, and with the base hit support from the big ballpark here, could get involved a little bit more than typical. Same with Pete Crow Armstrong, given his speed, just put the ball in play in Coors and run it out. This ballpark is gigantic. 26 steals on the season for him, just a 289 on base, has some work to do to improve, but a lot of skills for Crow Armstrong. Miguel Amaya, totally skippable catcher. If you're going to Rockies bats, they'll be the lower owned of the two teams, which always gives them appeal. Charlie Blackmon just kind of playing out the string, still low strikeout, but not doing a ton at the top of the lineup. 85 WRC+, a little bit skippable and somewhat high price for what he's doing. 49.32 is a little nonsensical. Ezekiel Tovar for 55.35, Phil shortstop well. He's hit 22 home runs, a 195 ISO, 92 WRC+. Plays alongside their absolute stud of a center fielder. 22 home runs and 27 stolen bases, a 325 on base, 266, 325, 459, a 193 ISO, a 103 WRC plus on the season. Solid 10.8% barrels, 41.6% hard hits. That doesn't tell the full story of Brenton Doyle. If you haven't seen the clips of this guy playing center field, like actual defense, you're missing out. It's not the full picture. He is tremendous in center field. Throwing the ball, the range that he displays, it's ridiculous. There's tons of clips on Twitter that pop up basically nightly with this player at this point. Ryan McMahon, no points for defense, obviously. He's just also a good hitter, multi-category contributor for DFS. Ryan McMahon at third base, 53, 34, 19 home runs, a 160 ISO. At one point this year, it looked like it was going to be the oh wow year for Ryan McMahon, and it just turned into just another Ryan McMahon season. But that's not all bad. You still buy power, you still buy a decent lefty bat for not a high price, a lot of barrels, decent hard hit rate. I don't have any issues going to Ryan McMahon here. Brendan Rodgers, decent contact, 44.2% hard hits. He's up to 273, 11, 409 this season. 13 homers and 87 WRC+. Mixed quality in terms of the output. Not drawing a tremendous walk rate. But I do like the hard hits. I like the upside for hard hits at a cheap second base option at Coors Field. Talia's got a ton of power, 23 homers and 395 plate appearances, a 249 ISO, a 16.9% barrel rate. A lot of strikeouts, but also draws walks, keeps himself involved a little bit. We've slipped below average for run creation, but that can come roaring right back. Nolan Jones, a lot of strikeouts and walks from him as well. He's only hit 3 home runs and stolen 4 bases. It's been a disappointing second season, over 256 chances from Jones. Was tremendous last year, had a 2020 season in 424 chances. By the way, congrats to Jackson Churio, who got his 2020 last night. Youngest player to ever do it. Hunter Goodman and Jordan Beck are also both interesting at the bottom, especially Goodman carrying catcher eligibility, kind of interesting. 3,000 on both sides for him, 3,200, 2,900 for Beck. Both guys are power-hitting prospects. Neither guy has been successful at all or consistent at all in the show, but we do have 9 home runs and 191 chances for Goodman with an outstanding barrel rate, 3 home runs and 156 with a limited barrel rate for Jordan Beck so far. But both guys at least mix and match quality. If you're building up a bunch of Rocky stacks, include that bottom of the lineup. They are going to be completely under-owned. And these guys from Talia down are all at least interesting power bats. Cubs bats, a little reluctantly given what the ownership's probably looking like. Rocky's bats, a little firmer given what the lack of ownership's probably looking like. But it is firmly both bats. Neither pitcher for me, but Assad over Gomber if you got to do it. Stros and the Angels. Neither lineup is in. Sammy Aldieri had a couple good ones to start the Major League career. First Italian-born player to pitch in the majors. On the 6th, he went 6 innings, struck out 7, walked 3, 1 earned run on 3 hits to the Rangers. Then the start before that, the debut start was against the gettable Mariners. It was a weird performance. 3 strikeouts, 2 walks, 7 runs allowed on 6 hits, but only 2 of them were earned. Gave up a home run. We'll call that a draw against a bad Mariners team. He had a 31.6% strikeout rate with an 11.4% walk rate in Double-A this season in limited action, while with the Angels, 30.4% strikeouts, 8.7% walks in a larger sample in Double-A with the Phillies from this year, and High A was similar. Is a talented kid, probably a little bit of polish, still needs to be applied. 6,500, 7,700, the biggest thing working against him is the Astros lineup. The Astros are pretty tremendous. And they're also probably going to have Kyle Tucker. Yeah, they changed it. Looks like Labs went back and realized they didn't have Kyle Tucker in it too. Oh, he is in there. My mistake. Oh, the other's a lefty. That's why. I put it in the wrong spot. I was thinking he was right-handed when I dropped that in. All right, so Tucker is in there. Good. Increases the upside for the Astros. As we always point out, there is no decline whatsoever for Jordan Alvarez or Kyle Tucker because of a lefty-lefty situation. Just play them. It does not matter for those 2 hitters. They're both spectacular. Aldieri's really got his work cut out for him. 16.9% strikeout rate for this projected version of the Astros lineup. Only Jake Myers is above 20%, and even he is not egregious at 23.6%. He's having a decent season. 12 home runs, 10 steals for a limited player, a part-time outfielder. Not a terrible option down lineup if he plays today. This, again, is still the projected version of the Astros. Is Altuve out of the lineup? Right side tightness for Altuve. So keep an eye on whether or not Altuve ends up in the lineup tonight. He says he's fine, apparently, but he's dealing with right side tightness. Even if you get this version, though, I mean, that top 4 is tremendous. Alex Bregman ended up having a pretty good year. 22 home runs, a 185 ISO, 114 WRC+. Looks a lot like Alex Bregman. Jordan, 59, 4,000, 32 home runs of 311, 394, 565 slash line with a 167 WRC+. Jainer Diaz, one of the most underappreciated catchers in all of baseball and all of DFS, I think. 4,700 at the catcher spot on DK. He's got a 45.5% hard hit rate. 16 home runs on the year. Plays basically every day. Hits like 3rd, 4th, 5th every day. 557 plate appearances. He's slashing 301, 327, 451. His creator runs 19% better than average. Fantastic option for the money where you have to play catchers. Playable at first base where you don't. Tucker missed most of the year, but he's got 19 homers and 10 stolen bases and just 282 chances. Doesn't strike out, draws a ton of walks, crushes the ball when he makes contact from the left side. 56-41, totally affordable for that player. 301 ISO and a 170 WRC+. Monster to add late in the season back into this lineup. Jeremy Pena, 42, 3,000, one of the guys that's in that playable group of shortstops. Not a star, but a playable guy. 267, 306, 397. Dead at league average for run creation, 15 homers, 16 steals. Gives you a little bit of upside. It's kind of similar to Ceddanne Rafaela with a little bit of more frequency, a little bit more reliability, and lands at league average for WRC+. But similar guys in terms of we're mostly getting contributions here and there of this game he scored a couple of runs, that game he drove in a couple, this game he hit a home run, that game he stole 2 bases, that kind of a thing. When it comes together for one game, that's when you spike a little bit of upside out of Pena. But he's an average kind of a guy. Caratini, a lot of hard hits over the years. 3 straight years of the 43 to 45% hard hit range. Reasonable barrel rates from a guy who costs nothing and is never popular. 6 home runs this season and 218 plate appearances. Decent output for power. Always a buy on Caratini in the lineup. He's easy to reach. Switch hitter, 114 WRC plus in his 218 chances. Definitely interesting down lineup. Myers, again, just another outfielder, mix and match quality. Mauricio Dubon, a little bit less than that so far this season. 86 WRC plus and 293 on base percentage. Does fill 5 positions on FanDuel for 2,500 and 2 positions on DraftKings for 23. And then Shea Whitcomb is a hitter at the bottom of the lineup. Second base and third base for 2,300. If he makes it into the lineup, that's kind of interesting. Hasn't exactly torn it up in the show yet. But this year in the minors, over 481 AAA plate appearances, 25 home runs, and 26 stolen bases. Slashing 293, 378, 530, creating runs 23% better than average. Last year in 392 plate appearances in AAA, 23 home runs and 12 steals. And then on top of that, he had 12 home runs and 8 steals in AA. So that's another 35 home runs and 20 stolen bases. Kid's pretty good. High-end prospect for them. So if you're stacking up Astros, don't sleep on Shea Whitcomb. Very cheap for his talent. Again, hasn't really shown it in the majors so far, but a very limited sample. Going up against a gettable lefty, I kind of like his upside. Kikuchi has been pretty tremendous since joining the Astros. Big trade deadline acquisition for them, of course. He has made 7 starts with Houston, pitching to a 3.07 ERA with a 2.65 xFIP. This board doesn't have strikeout rate on it, but I can give you a 11.63 K per 9, 2.2 walks per 9. Walks are always an issue with this pitcher. But since joining the Astros at the beginning of August, he's got an 11 strikeout game in his ledger. That came against Tampa Bay over 5 2/3. 12 strikeouts over against KC is very impressive. That came over 7 innings just 2 starts ago. 6 strikeouts last time out. Gave up 4 earned to a pretty good Diamondbacks lineup that is good against lefties, good against everybody. Went 6 in that game, but didn't book the quality start, but did get the win. Astros, definitely some support for the win upside for him. So I just kind of like him. He's rolling along. Has not had an issue. He's really cleaned up his walk problem in general. 4.31 ERA, but a 3.24 xFIP underneath it speaks to a little bit more hidden quality than what we've seen on the surface this year. 27.6% strikeouts, 12.9% very good strike throwing numbers. A little bit of premium contact still creeping through. That's always been an issue with this pitcher. Home runs will get him from time to time, but it was much more of an issue in previous years. 5% home run rate that year, 3.86 this year on similar contact. Stuff Plus loves the arsenal. Price is fine on DK at 92. It's a little aggressive at 10.5 on FanDuel. Given the choice, I'd probably go to Dylan Cease for 92. I'd probably go to Bybee for 85. In fact, Kikuchi out of the top-ranked pitchers for that price would probably be my last choice. But the fact that he is that expensive is probably going to keep ownership a little bit lighter than it otherwise would be in this situation because it's a really good matchup. This projected version of the Angels lineup has a 32.9% strikeout rate, but that's several very small samples going down the lineup here. The guys that we've had decent samples on, I'll even throw in the 15.9 for Stefanich. Those 4 guys, it amounts to a 23.3. If I took Stefanich away, the 3 key hitters in that group, 25.8. That's for Taylor Ward, Zach Neto, and Logan O'Hoppe. They're 3 best hitters. On the plus side, no Brandon Drury, no Anthony Rendon in the projected lineup. So that's an improvement just right there. Let's see if we got to confirm. Oh, shit, there it is. Per Dave Roberts, the odds of Shohei Ohtani pitching in October are slim, but the team is not shutting the door on the possibility, which means Shohei Ohtani is definitely pitching in October. I was just thinking about that the other day. Tyler Glass now suffers setback. That would also push the narrative there. Interesting. So, starting at the top with the Angels, Taylor Ward, 8.53 in the home run model, Zach Neto, 8.36, and then Logan O'Hoppe at 8.67. All decent options. We've got 23, 21, and 19 home runs, respectively. They've been the 3 core bats for this Angels team through most of the season. They've added a lot of young pieces into this team now at the end of the year. Everybody's very, very cheap in this lineup. including 3 guys at the bottom near the dead min on both sites, and not very much more than the min price for Jordan Adams, Michael Stefanich. Adams hit a home run after we talked about him the other day when we discovered he wasn't as highly touted a prospect as I was remembering. Went out, ended up hitting a homer. So hopefully somebody rostered him that day. I think you can go back there at 25, 23. He's very cheap. There's a little bit of talent there at least. He's hit the ball hard in the show over his 10 plate appearances. Charles LeBlanc at 3,300, 2,400 has a home run over 15 plate appearances. Let's see what old Chuck is giving us here. Oh, Chuck is old. Chuck is 28 years and 3 months old, so not really a prospect. 184 plate appearances in the show. He has it, 5 home runs, slashing 256, 321, 405 for the career. He debuted in 2022 with Miami. 169 plate appearances that year with 4 of his home runs and 4 of his steals. Obviously limited so far this year. I guess if he's hitting third, you can mix and match your way there for a few shares. I really don't love him at shortstop. Maybe at first or third on DraftKings for 33. FanDuel's probably a no at short. I'd just rather take that. Stefanich, just to put the ball in play, kind of a hitter. 15.9% strikeouts, 0% barrels, and 26.6% hard hits so far. Wagaman has 17 minor league home runs and 10 stolen bases across, call it about 500 plate appearances between AA and AAA this year. He hasn't been bad. Averages to about call it a 185-ish kind of an ISO, 187 ISO, somewhere in there. For the dead men, Wagaman's probably playable if you're stacking up Angels against Kikuchi and just, try and ride maybe some of the power downside. Maybe the walks come back and bite him today. But it's a bit of a stretch. Dead men on FanDuel, same thing. Teodosio and Jack Lopez. Teodosio, that's right, that's this guy. 40 stolen bases in 462 plate appearances in the minors, so maybe you get him, particularly if he moves up the lineup, maybe you get more stolen base opportunities, but looks just like a contact and speed kind of a guy. And then Jack Lopez is 31, nearly 32. 0 home runs in 41 plate appearances in the show. He's a .081, 105, 135 hitter with a negative 43 WRC plus for the career. So he'll be looking to improve on that, but I don't think we're playing him. This is the right guy, right? Yeah. So yeah, kind of a dead spot at the bottom of the lineup if this is what they do. This goes Astros, Bats, Kikuchi, but that could easily be the other way around and probably should be, honestly. It's more Kikuchi on DK than FanDuel, though. And then Angels, Bats above Aldieri. Making okay time. 5:32. Power says Roth dropped the weather concern to yellow in Atlanta. Yeah, it just seems like one to keep an eye on. Greg, I do really like that Twins lineup. That said, I am a Max Kepler fan, and I would have liked to have gotten another lefty bat in there if I could. He would have had a very good home run mark. Even not having the best season overall for Kepler. I forget whether Max is hurt or just not in the lineup today, but that's pretty damn close to the best version of the Twins lineup. Yeah, just like how Lou Gehrig died of Lou Gehrig's disease. What are the odds? So weird. Very sad, by the way. That's a terrible, terrible disease. Power drop the... What is this? Power... Oh, that's got to be ownership. I was trying to figure out what those percentages were. I thought you were throwing strikeout rate or something in there. And I was like, wait, you got a mix of hitters and pitchers here? What's going on? Jared Kelenic is the most highly owned player on the slate? For what reason? Jared Kelenic is closing in on double the popularity of Ian Happ at Coors Field? Whose ownership numbers are those? Now I'm just curious. McCaffrey ruled out for Sunday. Yet another update I'll have to make. That reminds me. Let me keep talking about baseball so that we can eventually get to the football show. 8 o'clock for football. Come on back. Tonight. Freddie Peralta, tremendous option. Even against the Diamondbacks. Probably going to go a little bit under-owned for his talent and for what his ceiling looks like. Still not the best Freddie season we've ever seen. 3.81 ERA, a 4.03 xFIP, 9% walks is too high. But he's still got a monster ceiling based on the strikeouts. 27% strikeout rate this year, 13.1% swinging strike rate, capable of more. This Diamondbacks team, not the best target for strikeouts, but there are gettable hitters in this lineup. Jock Peterson at 23.3, one of their better power bats, one of their better hitters overall, but does strike out. Also draws walks, of course, but Freddie knows how to get around that. Hopefully. He does have a 9% walk rate. There are strikeouts for Christian Walker this year. It's gone up by about 6 points year over year, but he also hits for a ton of power, and he also draws walks. Strikeouts for Geno Suarez, but same thing. He hits for a ton of power, draws the occasional walk, not the greatest walk rate in the world, but he's mashing the ball in the second half. He's up to 28 home runs on the season, a 228 ISO. Big part of why the Diamondbacks are so good. And then some low strikeout threats. Corbin Carroll's resurgence is another key part of why this Diamondbacks team has been so good second half. He's up to 19 home runs and 27 stolen bases. He's got a 195 ISO, a 105 WRC+. Basically nothing other than the batting average, and who cares about batting average? It even looks all that bad at this point for Corbin Carroll. So miraculously rescued his season. I really don't know how he did it so quickly, but he did. Tremendous second half. Ketel Marte back in their lineup, 18.2% strikeouts and 10.3% walks. Very threatening hitter. Probably your best second base option in just a vacuum of individuals on this slate. 6,300 hurts the pocketbook a little bit, but he's at 31 home runs, 262 ISO, a 149 WRC+. Tremendous. Probably outperforming Trey saying the field is coming around more to the Baker Mayfield? You talking football, Trey? I'm less on the Baker train this week than I was last week. Baker benefited from the matchup against Washington last week a little bit. I like him, but he doesn't project as high this week. Doesn't rank quite as high. Where were we? Erod. Let's go there. I was actually just halfway down the Diamondbacks. I forgot. So Jock, in addition to all the strikeouts at 23.3%, again, draws a very good walk rate, hits the ball extremely hard, actually having one of the better seasons of his career in his platoon role, 407 plate appearances on the strong side of platoon, 282, 404, 536, a 255 ISO. His career runs a team leading 60% better than average. He's hit 22 home runs. I want to see him hit more against lefties. I want to see him just completely unshackled and see what the numbers look like. Might as well. Christian Walker, 52, 33, 25 home runs. Again, a punch-up of 6 percentage points of strikeout, but it also comes with more barrels, more hard hits. The home run total probably ends up around the same, 33. He'd have some work to do to get to that. So maybe 30 home runs we fall a little bit short, but still a very good hitter, and he missed a little time this year. Jake McCarthy's having a good year, 8 home runs, 21 steals, a 360 on base, good correlated scoring with a 119 WRC+. Pavin Smith has roared to life all of a sudden. He's up to 7 home runs and a 287 ISO. We talked about him a little bit yesterday when somebody mentioned him. He's been barreling the ball and hitting it very, very hard in limited samples. He's always been a guy who had like mid-teens type power, but a big step forward. He's always been low strikeout, so conceivably can continue to put good bat on ball for us at least. Cheap in a very productive lineup. Gets on base and has a lot of guys around him that get on base. This is why this team's been so damn good at creating runs, by the way. That top 8 today, 349 average on base percentage. Pretty good. Average WRC plus of 128. Suarez, 11.2% barrels, still costs just 4,800 despite all the recent success on DraftKings, 37 on FanDuel. He's got 28 homers. He's a monster power hitter. Adaldo Perdomo gets on base at a great clip, 346 on base, a 104 WRC+. Doesn't give you much more than that. Not a great individual option at short, but if you're just counting him as a cheap wraparound option, you can plug him in there and just work him back up to the top of the lineup there. Hearing weird noises from outside again. So Erod at 67 on both sites does come with a little bit of upside just based on career track record. Obviously nothing in this year's numbers. I hate being like I'm going to stick my nose into your business, neighbor, but when there's crashing and banging noises coming from the shared hallway out there, I get a little bit worried. Anyway. Trailex Purdy. Minnesota secondary Swiss cheese. We'll get there. Let me work my way through the rest of this baseball slate. So Erod, once upon a time, not a high faith pitcher, but a talented guy. 23% strikeouts and 152 and 2/3 in a weird year last year. 3.30 ERA with a 4.06 xFIP. Wasn't bad at all last season. Year before, kind of limited, 4.05 ERA, a 4.41 xFIP, and that was the even weirder season. Some missed time over the last couple of seasons in strange ways for Erod. 18.4% strikeouts, 8.7% walk rate with a 4.41 xFIP that year. Better in years before that. I think there's a good year here. Yeah, 27-4. Over 31 starts and 157 and 2/3 2 years ago, or 3 years ago. 3.43 xFIP underneath an ugly ERA. He was getting unlucky that year. He was like the unluckiest man in baseball, I think I was referring to him as that year. You guys were all around. We were friends then. Back in this stochastic Awesemo days. So since then, Erod hasn't exactly been a go-to guy. Facing a good Brewers lineup, it's just the price that has me like, maybe slightly you could throw a few darts at it because he's so cheap. I do think you probably have upside to 6 innings. He went just 4 in each of the last 2 outings, but he went 5 1/3 in the 2 starts before those 2. And the 4 inning outings were 3 runs allowed on 7 hits and just 1 strikeout, 2 walks. 4 runs allowed on 7 hits, 1 strikeout, 3 walks. That was against the Dodgers and the Astros, respectively, as well. So kind of problematic matchups. But the first 4 starts, 5 2/3, 5 innings, 5 1/3, 5 1/3. So at least on depth, you're potentially strong enough. He's got to pitch well, and then if you get the 6 innings, he's presumably pitched fairly well. Got to reclaim his strike throwing form. That's been the big problem, though. 7.9% strikeouts, 24.7% CSW, and nothing strikeout rate. Until he does that, he is entirely skippable. I just mentioned him in great detail because he's so cheap. The Brewers' bats are probably the way to go in that head-to-head, though. Jackson Chourio, I mentioned it before, but again, the youngest player ever to get to 2020. He's there exactly, got there last night. 194 ISO, 118 WRC+, and just tons more to come from this kid over the next few years. Blake Perkins, 28-27, is affordable. 6 home runs, 20 stolen bases. I don't know if we'll ever see him again after this year, but he's had an okay season for the Brewers this year. Probably earned a job going forward. William Contreras for 5,000, 3,400, 21 homers, a 184 ISO, 129 WRC+, remains one of the top hitting catchers in baseball. He's one of the more expensive guys at the position on this slate, but he's totally warranted against this pitcher who's struggling like this and at these prices. Gary Sanchez, presumably in the lineup with a lefty on the mound. We do have the Diamondbacks lineup. We don't have the Brewers yet. If Gary's in there, I talk about it all the time. Gary never in his career has stopped hitting the ball hard. That is the one thing you can rely on. Gary Sanchez will put good bat on ball. How frequently he connects with it is a whole other story. A lot of swing and miss in Gary's game. Damn it, I put them in the Brewers. A lot of swing and miss in Gary's game. 26.9% strikeout rate this year, 25.1% last year, but 11.1% barrels, 44.4% hard hits this year, 15.4 and 44.6 last year, 13.5, 49.3 the year before. Dude knows how to hit home runs. 10 dingers on the season in 249 opportunities, just a 179 ISO, a little bit disappointing in the output, but just gets spotty chances, never gets consistent opportunities. So the production comes and goes. But on the right day, there's 2 home run upside with Gary Sanchez, no doubt about it. 3,800, 2,600. Sucks that he's a catcher positional conflict with William Contreras on DraftKings. You can play them both on FanDuel. Willie Adames having a tremendous season. 30 home runs, 18 steals, 215 ISO, 121 WRC+. Absolute priority in that lineup. Sal Frelick, just a mix and match quality guy. Low strikeout, put the ball in play, but doesn't hit it hard. Steals the occasional base, gets involved infrequently, just an 89 WRC+. Needs to improve the on base or the correlated scoring ability to really provide anything at all for this team on the offensive side. Rhys Hoskins, tons of power. 12.2% barrels, 23 home runs on 467 plate appearances, a 196 ISO. A lot of inconsistency, but one of the highest, or the highest mark in this lineup at 9.39 in the home run model. Joey Ortiz, mix and match quality from the bottom of the lineup. Very good on base at 339, a 107 WRC+. He's my preferred option, although Bryce Turang's 41 stolen bases are the most appealing individual statistic between the two. Turang's a lot less consistent for a higher price, so I'll take my shots with Ortiz. This goes, it's either Freddie or the Diamondbacks up top. I can't decide. I'll give it to the Diamondbacks, just because they've been so damn good lately. Diamondbacks slightly edging out Freddie Peralta, but those two things are very close and may well cancel one another out where it's a 4-5 run game, but they weren't outstanding. Freddie didn't have a great game, but only allowed like 3-4 earned runs. Didn't really find a great strikeout total, but was okay. I can very much see that kind of a game on both sides. Going the other way, the Brewers probably a better shot for offensive upside against Erod, so maybe they actually belong on top of the Diamondbacks. But Vegas doesn't totally see it that way. And if Erod comes out and is actually anything reminiscent at all of his previous form, then it's a different story. So I don't want to necessarily rank them that high. But it's at least fair to say that like they're in range of Freddie and the Diamondbacks. It's those three things jammed up toward the top, and then just cheap darts with Erod. And you're really just riding on the faith of who he used to be. 2 games to go. So somebody earlier, I forget who, was mentioning that the Mariners bats were the leverage play of the day. Don't really love it. Does Basso not scare anyone today? Not really, no. I mean, I was saying it before, I think it's just a go-to free square. The fact that he gave us 6 the last time out, the fact that he's now facing the White Sox, which is a worse team than he faced and did well against that last time, I really have no issues with it. If it was a 4-inning starter, then I'd be going through my usual, back and forth about whether or not I like one of those $4,000 prices. But I think he's just a click. I think he's just a free square today. Whether it works out or not is a different story, right? I mean, there is downside for sure, even against a scuffling team like the White Sox. And I do, again, like Brian Ramos and Lubov, at least at the top of that lineup. But even if it fails, using him, I think, is the correct decision, almost regardless of popularity. Trey, I don't think it would be a mistake to say 4 or 5 of 5. I would probably, if it was me building those 5, I would probably use him 2 or 3 times. But I like to get a little bit creative, let's say, with pitching. With some of the decisions, and I'm a little bit open to some risk because I think I'm at least halfway decent at identifying some sneaky pitching opportunities from time to time. So I would probably use 2 or 3 out of 5 and then spread the other shares around to some similarly effective opportunities. But I don't think it would necessarily be a mistake to use them 5 of 5. So again, Jake DeGrom, I don't think it makes the Mariners the go-to leverage option of the day because it is Jake DeGrom. Even if it's diminished Jake DeGrom. I don't think we're getting any kind of innings whatsoever out of him. I gave him just, that is a 3.5 inning projection. And you can see how good he is, what it does. We haven't seen him since the beginning of last year in the show. April 28th to be exact. He made 4 rehab appearances from late August through last week. Maxed out at 4 innings facing 13 hitters. That was against a Double-A Minnesota squad. Yeah, they're calling it 60 pitches. DeGrom could get through. That's why it's difficult to quantify via innings sometimes. Because Jake DeGrom could get through 5 innings on 60 pitches against this Mariners team. He's that good. Last year pre-injury, 30 1/3, 6 starts, had a 39.1% strikeout rate. In case you forgot how good Jake DeGrom is. 20.4% swinging strike rate. 20.4% swinging strike rate. 10 makes you good. 35.9% CSW. Only Jake DeGrom and Spencer Strider pitch in this kind of territory. Yes, I'm including Paul Skeets and anybody else you might want to name. Year before, another injury-marred season, 11 starts, 64 and a third, 42.7% strikeouts. A 21.1% swinging strike rate, a 35.4% CSW. Jake DeGrom could strike out 7 or 8 Mariners in 3 innings and then just be done for the day. There's a very loose ability to hit 5 for 8,500. Odds are he doesn't pitch super efficiently in his return to action here. Needs some pitches to find some strikeouts. There's still some downside in the return to action, so, the Mariners might scratch out some hits. He really doesn't walk people. I'm skeptical to whether it's going to suddenly be a problem for him. There are some walks in this Mariners lineup in addition to the strikeouts. But even in a contrarian sense, I think it just strongly favors DeGrom. I got to see him get beat by a team like this before I'm willing to endorse something like that. So, yes, Mariners going to be low owned. Good enough to beat Jake DeGrom here. If you roll it 100 times, do they get there once? Maybe. It's no guarantee. Yeah, half the game's going to come against the bullpen, but half the game's going to potentially just be zeros. Challenging. I don't think you play Jake DeGrom at 9,000 on FanDuel. You could, if you're building 150 lineups, reserve a few that you're saying, all right, I'm probably going to lose with these lineups, but what the hell? 85 is not completely terrible for 5 innings of DeGrom, but he needs to get you that 5th inning and book the win. Fortunately, his Rangers are facing Emerson Hancock, so that should help with the win. Hancock over 45 and a third this year, just a 14.1% strikeout rate, a 4.76 ERA with a 5.17 xFIP. He's given up 4+% home runs. We're way over the threshold here. We're actually under the threshold by 1.5 miles of exit velo there, but significant fly ball trajectory, a lot of mistakes in a 9.9% barrel rate. Decent to good hitters up and down this lineup, even with the underperformances in mind. Marcus Semien, very good second baseman over time. Adolis Garcia, we've seen a lot from him over the last few seasons. Even in a down year, he's providing some decent counting stats at the very least. Josh Smith is productive enough. Wyatt Langford's a talented rookie who's having a bad first season. Nathaniel Lowe is good, gets on base like crazy, and creates runs. Josh Young has a lot of power. Jonah Heim is a mixed opportunity catcher with a decent amount of power. There's a lot there. So I think there's support for the idea that the Rangers would win this game. That means DeGrom's got to get you the 5. Semien for 49, 335, 21 home runs, a 99 WRC plus has just been okay, but as I keep highlighting, there's nothing over here that would suggest that the numbers should be bad. It's just kind of a dip in output, maybe some bad luck factored in. I think you continue to go to Marcus Semien as the prices are still kind of low. Josh Smith, 41, 3,000. I do think they should have Nathaniel Lowe up there and maybe Smith down in this territory now. Smith has come down dramatically over the last few weeks, month plus, 347 on base, a 116 WRC plus. Still clinging to life with his head above water, but it's getting down there. He needs the season to end. By the way, speaking of season end, did you see that kid who got released by, what was it, the Twins, I think, organization? It was a 6th round pick this year's draft, and was giving away pitches to the opposing team as a catcher, and he was telling Crash Davis style the opposing hitters what pitches were coming because he, quote unquote, wanted the season to end. So now he doesn't have a job anymore in baseball after spending his entire life trying to get there. Weird decisions, man. Langford at 41-31 has 10 home runs and 14 steals. I think we were all expecting a little bit more from him as a rookie, but there are things to like. The 8.4% walk rate is not bad. The 21% strikeout rate is not bad at all. 8.7% barrels and 44.2% hard hits, not bad at all. Just needs to find some more results, some consistency. The price is fine against Emerson Hancock. There's nothing wrong with rostering Wyatt Langford if you're going to the Rangers. Adolis Garcia's got an 8.98 to lead the team in the home run model today. He's hit 22 this season with 11 stolen bases. Everything else is disappointing, but at least he's got the counting stats. He's got decent contact numbers. They're just down for him, but you're still a buyer at 43.31. It's all factored in price-wise. Low for 35.27 is getting on base at a 362 clip and creating runs 19% better than average. He should just not be that cheap. Even if you're just considering him as a correlated scoring piece in conjunction with like Garcia and Young on either side of him, he's still too cheap. Helps average down their prices, and their prices are cheap. Young for 42, 29, has a 10.8% barrel, 42.5% hard hits. He's hit 7 home runs in just 172 chances. Heim has 12 on the board this season, but a mediocre to bad 67 WRC plus. Both those guys mired at 76 WRC plus for Ezekiel Duran and Leody Taveras, who we liked as mix and match options from the bottom of this lineup last year. The Mariners, again, I really question their upside over the first 4 or 5 innings of this game. A lot of strikeouts there for Jake DeGrom to pick on. Don't really love it. Victor Robles gets on base at a good clip, 379 so far this year, 137 WRC plus in his 246 chances. He swiped 26 bases. Been very good for this team. There's a reason they extended him, and he's got a home now. Kind of like the player in the leadoff role, but not against Jake DeGrom even for 4 innings. Julio Rodriguez, cheap because he's underperformed all year. 14 homers, 22 steals, a 102 WRC plus. Does put him 2 points above average. Decent barrel rate, decent hard hit, but nowhere near what we expected out of him. He's just another outfielder, even at price. Cal Raleigh, 45-33, has power, 30 home runs from the catcher spot, very inconsistent. Still above average, though, 113 WRC plus, a 217 ISO. Good power bat to throw at DeGrom, but again, a very high strikeout guy, 29.1% strikeouts. You're going to put that against Jake DeGrom's 40+% strikeout ability? No, thank you. Randy Arozarena, 25.9% Ks. Luke Raley, nearly 30% Ks. 19 home runs apiece from those 2 hitters. 113, 122 WRC plus. Both guys have been effective this year. Arosarena's performance has been down. Luke Raley's been giving us a lot. They're both just borderline playable in a bad spot. And that's really where the quality ends. It's like a 5-man lineup. Justin Turner still gets on base, but he doesn't do much else with it. 112 WRC plus, he's a correlated scoring piece, but he's now trying to provide that ahead of 3 guys who just don't really do much. 88, 89, and 93 WRC plus marks for Polanco, Crawford, and Rojas at the bottom. Pretty limited bottom 4 for this Mariners team, so it just kind of feeds the beast of not really wanting to play this team that much. This goes Rangers bats. DeGrom on DraftKings and DraftKings only, I think. And really, it's not a play there. I just have to at least put him on the board because he could, again, go pitch 4 innings and find 8 strikeouts. The Mariners really not on the board for me outside of just the most contrarian of contrarian possibilities, and Emerson Hancock not really on the board even as a cheap pitcher. Last game up, Padres, Giants, Logan Webb, Dylan Cease, premium pitching matchup. Excellent options on both sides. Webb for $88.97 is differently priced across sites. Love the bargain on DraftKings. He's a tremendous option for limiting power. You can see the impact he has on the Padres home run model. They're not the best home run hitters anyway, but even Fernando Tatis, 4.80, Manny Machado, 4.08. Very limiting for power. 2.3 degree average launch this year, 1.29% home runs. Guys do hit the ball hard and generate a lot of exit velo against him, but on that launch angle, it just doesn't matter. It's the same thing last year, 0.6 degrees, year before 3.1 degrees. Always has been good at limiting home runs. Pitches extremely deep into games. One of your innings pitched leaders on the season, 189 2/3 over 30 starts. Striking out 20.2% this year. That's a bit of a dip. 22.8 last year and 20.7 the year before. So looking a little bit more like 2 years ago. But overall, pitching very well. 3.46 ERA, 3.28 xFIP, 5.9% walk rate is nothing. He's been outstanding this season. 88 is a great price to get him. The Pods are low strikeout. You do have that downside in this matchup. But Webb has enough to overcome that. And he gets his point scoring even when he's not striking out a ton of hitters. Just on innings pitched, on low scoring innings pitched. Last time out, 6 innings, gave up 3 runs on 10 hits, just 3 strikeouts and 2 walks. It's not exactly emblematic. That was also against this Padres team. If he goes out and does that at these prices on 97, it might shoot you in the foot on FanDuel. Less so at 88 on DK, but probably still not exactly what you wanted. Had a clunky one against the Marlins. That was a meltdown start. Gave up 6 earned runs on 8 hits to Miami of all teams. 4 earned runs on 5 hits the start before that against Milwaukee. So that's 3 less than successful outings in a row. But against the White Sox, 8 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts. 7 Ks in 7 2/3 against Atlanta. 8 strikeouts over 7 innings against Detroit. That's the upside. He's got a complete game in here. Roughly, I'm going to call that 10 games at least where he's pitched into the 7th or beyond. Probably more like 12. excellent at pitching deep into ball games for the price. Dylan Cease brings more strikeout upside to the table. He also has been pitching fairly deep, but you can see the difference. 170 innings in 30 starts for Cease versus 189 and 2/3. That's 2 full starts in his 30 starts on top that Logan Webb's been able to make just by virtue of pitching deep into games. So he can rack up the numbers just as much as a lot of the other top-end starters because he just goes a little bit further. 3.71 ERA for Cease with a 3.42 xFIP shining underneath it. A dominant 14.4% swinging strike rate, 29.1% CSW. One of the better strikeout pitchers in baseball, full stop. One of the best options for strikeouts on this slate and our slate leader by projections. 94-92, easy to reach against the high strikeout Giants squad. Projected version of the Giants lineup, you can see right there, 27.8%. Even if we take out the 2 low sample guys, that's still 25.2% for all these guys with complete samples. It's a gettable Giants team. The hitting environment should be on the side of the pitchers. I like both arms. I don't really like bats on either side of this one. If you're going to the Padres, Luis Arraez is an ideal way to start out because he's not looking for power. He's just looking to poke the ball through the infield or over the infield. So kind of the ideal guy to throw at Logan Webb, but you still do need help from all these other guys for him to actually make any kind of real value for you. 2,900, 4,300, at least you can stick him at second base. 350 on base, just a 110 WRC+. Tatis in the outfield for 52.36, cheap. He's got 16 homers in 378 plate appearances, but that's a little bit off the expected pace. 194 ISO is a little bit disappointing. We want 200 plus out of a player like this. Still making great contact, but the results have been mixed. Profar 45.34, another guy who kind of needs the season to end before things start looking worse. 279, 381, 458, still good. 22 homers, a 140 WRC+. He'll come out looking pretty solid no matter what happens, but season ending or a couple of good weeks to end things here would be beneficial for his numbers. Machado, 51.35, has 26 home runs this season, a 194 ISO, really pulled it together. Looks a lot like Manny Machado has an outside shot at another 30 home run season, making tremendous contact and very affordable at third base. 51.35 for this player, that's not bad. Jake Cronenworth, 42.3000, 16 home runs, a 154 ISO, 110 WRC+. He's just okay. Bogart's mix and match quality this season. 9 home runs, 10 steals, hasn't been outstanding over 407 plate appearances, 6% below average for run creation. Jackson Merrill's terrific, 126 WRC+, a 206 ISO. He's hit 23 home runs as a rookie. He's stolen 16 bases, 11.3% barrels, and 43.5% hard hits. He's a star. Kid looks like a legitimate star. 17.8% strikeouts, 4.6% walks, so all those well-struck balls are just put in play. Love the option. Definitely in contention for the Rookie of the Year. Between the 3 Jacksons, Jackson Chourio, Jackson Merrill, and Jackson Holiday, Merrill's arguably been the best one. I know Chourio got his 2020, but overall, the numbers for Merrill are a little bit better. Higgy, tons of power upside, but the wrong pitcher to throw it against. Mason McCoy, mix and match quality at shortstop, and really not even that so far. On the other side, Tyler Fitz is a strong shortstop option from that next tier down. He's hit 14 home runs and stolen 17 bases in 294 plate appearances so far. Came out of the gates rampaging. He's cooled off a little bit, but still very good numbers across the board. Highly playable. 3 positions on FanDuel, shortstop only on DraftKings. Prefer him a little bit on FanDuel, but playable across both sites if you're choosing to target Dylan Cease, which I don't tend to do because Dylan Cease is terrific and all these guys strike out. Fitz has a 29.6% strikeout rate to go with the quality. Mike Yastrzemski from the left side, 15 home runs, but a 26.4% strikeout rate. Elliot Ramos from the right side, tons of barrels, tons of hard hits, 20 home runs in 459 plate appearances, but a 26.8% strikeout rate. Conforto, 16 homers, a 201 ISO, decent bat on ball skills, 25% Ks. Matty Chapman, 24.1% strikeouts against his 24 homers, his odd 15 steals, 203 ISO. These guys do hit the ball very hard, but they sacrifice a lot of Ks to get there. Lamont Wade, 22.7% strikeouts, draws a tremendous walk rate, 396 on base. Should probably be leading off for this team just every day, regardless of who's on the mound, just given his on base and correlated scoring skills. Has a little bit more power than we've seen this year. It's highly playable anywhere in the lineup, but I'd greatly prefer him in the leadoff spot. Patty Bailey, Marco Luciano, and Grant McCray, mix and match quality down board. Luciano hasn't had much of a chance yet, but is supposed to be a little bit of a hitter. 71 plate appearances, kind of empty, 76 WRC+, but is at least generating a 45.5% hard hit, which is interesting. $2,400 second baseman, $2,200 on FanDuel. This is Cease, Webb, Padres bats, Giants bats. But I really don't like the bats on either side. And in most other situations, I would probably have the bats the other way around because there's more appreciable power upside in the Giants lineup. Probably the best two players in the game, though, are on the Padres side with Fernando Tatis and Machado. Yeah, this one's primarily pitching. And that wraps up the show, gang. Last looks at the pitching board. Trey realized that the Colorado game is in Colorado. Yeah, that kills any upside for Assad. If it was in Wrigley, I'd be interested. So one last time through the top of the board here, 2.5 hours into the show, as we got to wind things down so that we can get up and running for an 8 o'clock football show. Come on back for that. We're going to be talking main slate. We're talking about every last little angle because we haven't done anything for it yet in terms of shows this week. Somehow we always end up with these marathons on the weekend. But I hope you come join it and hang out for a little bit at least. Going to start up at 8 o'clock. We'll end wherever we end, and it'll be available for you to watch all weekend. Site will all get updated overnight as well. I'll complete the Optimizer Group's article. All the team notes and everything. So keep an eye on things. But starting here, Dylan Cease against San Francisco. Top option on the slate. Tons of strikeouts available. I like Kikuchi, but I don't love the FanDuel price. Much more in the mix on DraftKings. He'd be my last choice from the top tier on FanDuel just with that price offset. But he is very good. Has been very good. Is a good strikeout option. Great matchup against the Angels. Love the Bibee option against the Rays at 85-83. Definitely some appeal there. High-end strikeout pitcher against a low-end squad. Ober, easy to see success against a mediocre Cincinnati team. Could definitely get there just on innings alone. He is good at finding clean innings. So I like the Ober option against Cincy. Playable, 98, not a great price on FanDuel, but it's tolerable. 86 is a good price on DraftKings. Freddie Peralta on both sites, 96, 97. Fire away, there's upside for sure. Arizona's very good. They score a ton of runs. They're low strikeouts, so it's a challenging spot. And amongst those top-end pitchers, it is one of the more challenging spots. But Freddie, easily good enough to get there. So he's in the mix. Wouldn't be my first choice, wouldn't be my one lineup choice, but in the mix for shares. Just realizing I never put in a placeholder for this. Looks like it filled too. That's annoying. See if I can pick off a cancellation. Clark Schmidt, just don't love the matchup against the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium, but 87-82, cheap enough to find out if he gets there or not, and capable of giving you strikeouts, giving you clean innings. He's good enough to beat that team. It's just a lot of threatening left-handed hitters in that lineup. DeGrom, again, I think we're just coming in around those median projections for your money, so there's probably not enough meat on the bone, but could strike out a few additional hitters even in 4 innings and maybe pay off a DraftKings price. Probably need the 5th, probably need the win bonus. Tanner Houck, don't love it against the Yankees, more of a run limiter situation against the Yanks than he is a tremendous pitching option, but 81 is cheap enough that you can go there on DraftKings. He's in the mix for shares. Kevin Gausman, same thing at 8,000 on DK. 93, 95 for those two pitchers in those two matchups are entirely skippable on FanDuel. They're moderately playable as well, but there's just so many options in that price range that I don't feel the need to target the Yanks at home, don't feel the need to target the Cardinals. Basso is very much on the board on both sides. 6,000, not a bad price against the White Sox, given that he gave you a 6-inning upside with some strikeouts against a better team last time out. 4,000, chalk bargain of the day on DraftKings. Just roster it, just play it. It's kind of a no-brainer spot. Schwelly, very talented pitcher, a little bit high priced at 9 on DraftKings. FanDuel did you a little favor at 88. He's good. He's had a lot of strikeout success, but it's a terrible matchup against the Dodgers. Landon Knack, bad matchup against the Braves for all the power that he might allow. 76, 75, though, at least he's cheap, and there are Ks for him. Fede against the Blue Jays, I don't really like at price, just kind of there occupying space. Same thing with Littell. Both of those teams are a little bit too low strikeout for those guys where they're priced. They're fine. You can go there. They might succeed, but there's not a ton of visible upside. Crochet, not enough innings. Erod, way off form, even at 6,700. Difficult to trust right now. Assad's pitching in Coors Field, that's a no. Aldieri, good but limited by the matchup against the Astros potentially. 77-65. Maybe you throw the dart from the value bin a few times. Aguilar's a no with all the power that the Twins are showing. Gomber's a no, and Hancock is pretty much a no because he's mispriced. Can't believe we got to talk for like 5 hours of football after this. That's why I put the break in there. Initially, I was like, I'll just steamroll one into the other. And then I was like, nah, that ain't going to work. Grab some dinner. Let my voice cool off a little bit. I'll let the cat out of the bathroom for a little bit. Poor guy gets locked up in there. Here's your home run board. It is Ozuna up at the top, but you can see a lot of Twins coming through for a ton of power in that spot. Really like the looks of the Twins lineup. Twins and the Guardians is kind of interesting today. Twins and the Braves I could see getting there as a combination. Some interesting options. The Red Sox, too. Don't sleep on the Red Sox. I'm telling you that total is at least a half a run low at 384. That should be mid-4s. It's Yankee Stadium. It's Clark Schmidt. That should be a higher total. That's it, gang. Let me punch the eject button, get the stats updated, the projections rather, updated for this baseball slate, and then get back to work so I can give you a good football show in a little bit. Come on back 8 o'clock. Hit the like button right now. Hit the subscribe button. That 8 o'clock show is already on your schedule, so just be here for it. We'll talk a lot of football. If you're playing baseball tonight, if you're not playing baseball tonight and you watch this ridiculous show, you're a very special person. But presumably you're playing baseball tonight. Good luck out there tonight, guys. Somebody go win something. We'll see you in just a little bit, under 2 hours. Later.